Alrighty.
Hello, Judge.
Morning. Had to shovel snow last night till 2 a.m. in the morning, and I got up today and had another 4 inches. I got a 2,000 square foot driveway, and I hand shoveled it because my snowblower won't start. The spark plug's messed up. So I got my workout last night and today. I'm 68 years old, and I just survived 5 heart attacks, and I shouldn't be out shoveling snow, but what the hell. I need the exercise.
He was also jumping up and down the lift trying to catch the gravity and trying to neutralize inertia as well. Okay, what I'll do is I'll start it now. Today's webinar is about sentence structure. Since Miller is with us, and thank you very much for doing this with us.
Yeah, it was fun.
What I'll do is use this opportunity to ask any questions that you folks want to ask him, and he said he'll answer it. So in regards to the curriculum of today, I can go over it at the end, or I can go over it at the beginning, but since this wonderful opportunity has occurred, I thought we might take full advantage of it and ask him those questions that we need to ask him. So where does the curriculum go? Well, with the sentence structure, I can shoot a video, and there are such videos up and running already. I can shoot it and I can explain how the sentence structure is done, and it'd be very detailed, and I've got some library stock of that as well, so I can do that as a post webinar today. That's if you folks are okay with it. I'll cover that free, as it were, and I'll give that to you folks. That's what will happen to today's curriculum. That's if you folks are okay with it. So if you tell me if it's okay, I'll use this opportunity to talk to David.
Just call me David. You don't have to punctuate it. Too many words.
Okay, so if somebody can give me a hands, please, or a voice to say that's perfectly fine.
Yes. Oh, good. Yeah, but I thank you. Right, Dave. Thank you.
All right.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. That's good with me, Mom.
Okay. So I'm just doing my safety checks here. Everything is being recorded. That's being recorded. Everything, all images are okay. That's okay. And the voice recorder is on. That's David. Help yourself, folks. Ask those questions that you need to ask him. Now, before we dive in, I've got to let you know, I came here wanting only 2.5 hours of Miller's time. He said, no, forget about that, just come every day, we'll meet you every day, we'll spend the whole day together, and another day and another day and another day. And we start early and we finish really late. And he's been answering virtually all of our questions. And some of them I've captured on video. I think it's about 9 hours of footages that I've captured. But we've been speaking for well over probably 30 hours, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, guys.
Right, there's some... so what's going to happen is somebody's got a question, just say your name and then ask the question, and he will answer it. And the next person, if 2 or more people asking the same questions, sort it out amongst yourself as if you are responsible car drivers. So give yourself each other's plenty of space, as it were. Okay. I've not put in any time limits on this. It normally ends at after 2 hours. But if Miller is okay with it, we can go on as long as he wants to.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
As long as you keep my coffee cup.
Just raise your hand, we'll free fill it.
So, whoever wants to go first.
Hi, David. It's Justin from England.
Hey, Justin. We've talked.
Hi. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Justin.
David, I'd just like to ask you about Parse.
Okay. Parse is... Want to learn about Parse? Pick up any hymn book in any religion. All hymn books are written in Parse. Parse is mathematics. It's how you break a word up by syllables. And PRA means comes from parts, and SA is speak, parts of speech. So each word that you create, anybody that creates music, all music is mathematics, has to break up the rhythmic symbols of a word to match the music. And that's how you learn parse.
Could you tell me what occupier means?
Occupy, OCC. All right, under the laws of Aileen, man, the human being, the word human means monster, has been at war for 10,000 years that they have recorded. Because all land masses on planet Earth have been subject to war. That means that when a war takes place and you take the land by war, or you take the land without buying it by killing somebody, that the word is alien, A-I-L-I-N-G. So when you use the word occupation or occupy, the OCC means that you have no contract to own that property because it was an alien condition of titling. So there is no lodial, L-O-D-I-A-L, location, D-I is original, A-L is contract. No original contract. However, in the movie Tom Hanks and Castaway, Tom Hanks was a single man on a desert island by himself, so he was sovereign, and he had lodial title to the island. Mark Walden in the movie Martian was the only human being on Mars. There was no war, so he cultivated it and explained it under maritime law and international law that he was he was a sovereign on Mars. He was not occupying it. He was actually farming it. He lived there. And under international maritime law, the word international, by the way, I-N is no, T-E-R is terra for earth. Nation is people, and A-L is contract. No earth people contract. He wasn't on Earth. He was on a different planet. So he colonized it by himself by growing crops and living there for 3 years. Under international law, the planet Earth then joined together to bring him home, so planet Earth could make contract with him to go back to Mars in a future date because he now owned it to do mining. And they explained that quite in detail throughout the whole movie. And all of that goes to all of my programs. That you have to have a correct contract. It has to be written in correct grammar, using the correct words in the correct prepositional phrase sequence to make a correct contract. Then you have a correct contract. Then you have a correct contract. Then you can establish quiet title. Now, in Hawaii, it took me 6 months and 186 pages of research and development to capture a plot of land where I was living and file the first lodial correct parse, syntax, grammar, performance contract for that land. And that lodial title of what's called a quiet title, which means there is no challenge from any living or past individual from any contract anywhere on the planet. And that stands in Honolulu for the property in Maui. When I left Maui, the house was seized 10 days after I left Maui to come back to Wisconsin on the 15th of December, 2015. No one can sell it or occupy the property after I left. It still sits there empty. So,
Is it okay if I paraphrase some of these stuffs that you
Sure.
say? So you guys are familiar with the film with Matt Damon in it, and I've
Martian.
always, with Matt Damon, I think is the actor, The Martian. He goes there. It's unoccupied. He hasn't killed anybody because it's inhabited. And in order for him to live there, he cultivated the land. When he cultivated the land, because there was no war on it, no ailing, he could get himself to say that he is now, that place is his, claim lodial title, and thereby also sending out a message to NASA. And in that film he does say this is all under maritime law. He sends a message out. NASA now comes and picks him up, which is now a salvage operation. So they salvage him and the land that he cultivated, and because the land itself, which is Mars in the film, is not in dispute under maritime law, they captured it. Have I paraphrased it?
That was perfect. And under Title 46, Chapter 781, that's salvage claim. So he filed a salvage claim for the planet and then cultivated it. And there was nobody there to file a grievance against him. And he had 1 year and 3 days under the Rescissions Act for anybody to file a grievance on Mars, and he was the only person. So henceforth, there was no, once he had his salvage claim established, he owned Mars. Simple as that.
So, just to find some more supporting evidence, if you remember when the Crown went to Ireland in the 12th century or whatever it was, they said this is a barren wasteland and there are no natives here, and they treated the Irish people the same. They did the same thing with the Australians, and they did
Zulu, South Africa,
and the list will of course go on and on. And far as I remember, when the Crown landed in England, they did the same thing as well and killed off all the native English people.
See, when England landed in 1800 in South Africa, the first thing they did, the mailman or the postmaster got off the boat and rowed to the shoreline by himself. He then went ahead and he put up a tent, and he put up the British flag in front of the tent. And of course, the Zulu tribesmen have never seen a white man before because they were the first ones down there. And he put up, and he said, this is a post office for mailing letters and communicating. And they said, well, this isn't your land, get off. And because the post office controls all military on planet Earth, the mailman then sent a message back to the ship, soldiers, come here and protect me from the Zulu. So the Zulu then had a few skirmishes with the military from the ship under the guise, G-O-I-S-E, of the postmaster, who was Postmaster General, ordering his troops to protect him. So they went ahead and they then took this post office, which was a tent, and they built a structure. And the tent had to be there for 1 year, or the structure had to be there for 1 year of fighting. So finally the British government says to the Zulu chief, listen, why don't we take this to court and fight this in court instead of killing each other? And the Zulu chief says, well, this is good karma to negotiate a settlement. And the Zulu chief was a 34-degree Master Mason.
Are we talking about Zaka Zulu himself?
Yeah, he was a 34-degree Master Mason.
Zaka Zulu.
I'm a 92nd degree Master Mason. That's because I hold the secrets and the key master and a bunch of other stuff. So the captain of the ship was a 34-degree Mason, and the Postmaster General was a 34-degree Master Mason. Masons are not allowed to kill each other. So they had to sit down after 1 year and 3 days under maritime law of salvage. They then hung the sign that this is a court, a district court, over the post office building. All post office buildings put up across the United States for its history were post offices to establish a point of moving vessels, which are human beings, and mail between point A and point B, effective through the New World Order, October, that New World Order was October 22nd, 1871, but we're going back to 1800 now. So the British Crown was using maritime law in the post office to establish the court. And so when the Zulu came in, the judge says to the Zulu chief, show us your written contract that says this land belongs to you. He says, well, we have rights. We have lived here for thousands of years on this land. And we've conquered it. Well, if you conquer land, that's ailing, A-I-L-I-N-G, because you killed the people that were there. And the Zulu were warriors. So there was a lot of skirmishes taking place in the Africa between tribes. So because the land was under ailing, and they didn't have a contract to purchase the land, it comes back to the Zulu have a right, the postmaster has a right, the military has a right, and the judge says, well, we all have rights. The fox has a right to eat, and the chicken has a right to eat. Enough said about rights. What that says is that the person that is the strongest and the most powerful will have the right of conquest over the weaker party. But you know what that is? It's the definition of rape. R-A-P-E. To rape somebody, rape a forest, rape a city, rape a people, sexual rape, to use power to dominate another person and damage them. So,
Thank you very much. Can I recap?
sure.
Okay. So, just one more point with the loyal title. So, when Miller filed his own loyal title in Hawaii, the land itself was never under dispute, and there was never war.
Oh, wait.
There was?
No. The Hawaiian people came to the Hawaiian Islands from the Polynesia in 800 AD, and there were people living on the Hawaiian Islands. Now, the Hawaiians built these 250 to 300 foot long canoes, which they rowed 1,780 miles to the Hawaiian Islands. For like 4 years, they saw this bright glow in the sky, which is Mauna Loa, when it was erupting. And so they were curious about what the glow was, so they built this big canoe, put 250 guys on it. And the Hawaiians in the year 800 AD stood 7'6" and weighed 500 pounds. These are big boys from the Polynesia. So they paddled their way all the way up there. When they got up there was little people there. They didn't want the blood contaminated. So they had 20-foot bamboo poles, and they walked the island from one island completely across the island, and they killed all the inhabitants on the Hawaiian Islands so that the blood would never be tainted. And then for 1,200 years, they had, as the tribe got bigger and bigger and bigger, up to 2 million people, they had domestic wars between their own tribes. So the Hawaiian Islands, even though they didn't have external battles, because I believe the Chinese and the Japanese sailors came there and were probably there for 1,000 years by accident. Or their ships crashed there and they wound up staying on the island and developing it until the Hawaiians showed up, and they were bigger guys and more powerful people. And so they dominated, took over the island, and the blood stayed straight up into to the year 1800 when Cook shows up. First in 1789 and comes back in 1800 to bring courts and religion and change everything. But when the white man came, he also brought disease. And the population from 1800 to 1829 went from 2 million people to 29,700. 99% genocide of the Hawaiian race. And then he had all the whalers coming in from every country in the world. And they brought all their diseases. And that was just a hotbed of people getting syphilis and gonorrhea and clap and tuberculosis and smallpox and everything else, until everybody got so sick it boiled down to where it is. And then the Hawaiian Islands were developed to where they are today. So,
Thank you.
Hawaii was, now Bailey was brought to the Hawaiian Islands in 1834 to lay out land plots. And because Bailey was a surveyor, he put his name on all the choice areas. And when he died, when they looked at the land plots of what family owns what, Bailey's name is on all these 60 square miles of prime sugarcane. Then they brought in the Chinese and the Japanese and the Filipinos to build aqueducts to bring water from like Hana, where they got 500 inches of rain a year, to the valley between Haleakala and North Island, and put in his big sugar canes. That's the Maui story. You go up into Oahu, you've got pineapple and sugar cane up there. Dole Pineapple owns everything. But Bailey, he basically wrote his name on everything. And when I found out he did everything in adverb for fiction, I'm going, there's no titles in Hawaii. This whole thing is open. That's why I went and I filed colloidal title for the land with the correct parsing, syntax, grammar, and the government couldn't argue with it. They couldn't tear it down. They couldn't remove it from the files. And after I got elected king of Hawaii, I made all kinds of changes with the Constitution and correct grammar. And the government's been on the run ever since.
And that is why there is only 2 banks.
There's only 2 banks in Hawaii because of quantum language. Bank of Hawaii and Hawaii Bank. There's the Pacific Rim Savings and Loans, but there's no offshore banking from any country on planet Earth because all banking on planet Earth is controlled through Bern, Switzerland, the post office, and fiction banking. But in Hawaii, it's quantum. So that's why the fact and the fiction shall never meet.
And me and Martin did some searches on that, and there are no foreign banks. We checked
No.
that. There are no foreign banks. They are native banks.
Hawaii is not the 50th state of America. Hawaii is a sovereign country as of March 8th, 2013, when it came out of its second international bankruptcy. You can go up on my website the entire history of Hawaii, starting at 1789, and how the Masons joined together from many different countries that were on the island, and we're going to capture the islands. And the timelines, it's all about timelines. And the proclamations, declarations that were made, PRO means no contract, and DE means no contract. So all the laws that were written as far as contracts by the kings and everybody else, and even the Masons, were all fraud. So when I showed up and I went into the archives and I pulled up all the historical books and all the historical treatings, I disqualified everything as the king and wrote a correct, we got 72 families of the Hawaiians together and wrote a quantum contract, a constitution 115 pages long for the United Nations. And during the Blood Diamond Wars that were taking place, and everyone remembers that at The Hague they were doing the Blood Diamond thing, went on for 13 years. They stopped the trial because they had never seen quantum language written, and they had to learn about quantum language because the Hawaiians were the first country on planet Earth to introduce a quantum constitution for their independence from the United States. Now, in 1893, when the United States took Hawaii as a territory, they couldn't do that because Hawaii was in bankruptcy. And from 1871 until World War II started, 1941. That's exactly 70-year international bankruptcy. The United States of America was in bankruptcy from 1789 to 1859, and 1859 to 1929. A bankrupt corporation cannot invade another bankrupt corporation from Bern, Switzerland under international postal law. So Hawaii was never invaded. They were always sovereign, and because people only have a 2nd grade reading level, nobody knew how to stop it. The only person that knew what was going on was the Postmaster General and the Supreme Court Justice. No matter where, all the Supreme Court Justices were aware of syntax, because that goes back to 1215 in England at the Magna Carta. And I disqualified that, and that was sold to Christie's of London for $6.8 million as a historical document with no value.
And I did a little presentation on that where the building itself was for sale on Rightmove, and when I released the information, years later, of course, they took it down. They took the website down, and it wasn't for sale. But they still left out left up there the information that the document itself was sold to an American billionaire as a piece of antique. Yeah. So that's that. The question I wanted to ask you, I didn't know another race of Polynesians came aboard the Hawaiian Islands and they killed them. Where would I find that information?
That's in their artwork. The history of Hawaii is written on the volcanic tubes. You have to go and dive off of Kona on Big Island and you got to go out maybe quarter mile, go down about 60 feet, and they have volcano tubes, nice big round ones, and you got to swim up in the tubes, and they go up into the volcano, and that's where the history of Hawaii is kept, going all the way back 1,200 years. Because the Hawaiians, when they got to the island, of course they were fishermen. They had to eat, and when they're diving down there, they discovered the volcano tubes, and so they swam up in there and said, this is a great place, it's preserved, to write down our history. And so with painting, they painted their history on the walls of the volcano tubes in pictures, pictographs.
So the cave drawings and the paintings were an actual library, like the Egyptians would etch it into the stone.
Right. The Egyptians did the same thing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Anybody else? Sorry, let me cover one more thing. Under international law, as far as I know, when you call yourself a warrior, like an eco-warrior, you're already declared war on people, and therefore you are open to attack. But if you called yourself a friend of the earth or something, that signifies that you're friendly and that you're a friend. So I remember during the 80s when the movement started off, that the actual founders of the animal rights, liberation, and so on and so forth, what they did is they made it very clear that it's the animals that are the fans, it's not about the humans. And then of course the infiltration came along, and then they sexed it up, and the younger folks, as it were, wanted to make it look more sexy, and they called themselves eco-warriors. As soon as that happened, the French sank, and they put that out on television, they sank Rainbow Warrior. How can a ship that's on peaceful duties be calling itself a warrior? So if he calls himself a warrior, I have the right to attack him, because he's declaring to me that he is at war with me and the rest of the world. Okay, so I thought I'd cover that. Anybody else? Now, those people that keep turning their mic on, can you switch it off unless you have a question? Yeah, so those people that got their mics on, switch it off. Okay, next person, if you can ask a question. Oh, by the way, Justin, have you got your question answered in passé?
Yeah, that's good. The other thing was, David, we'd really love a copy of your book, the dictionary.
Yeah.
How can we go about getting it?
What I would
I know you've got it
suggest.
on your own.
So what I would suggest, if I can answer that, this is what you're referring to. If you put the funds into my account, I'll get it from Miller, and I'll bring it over and then ship it out to you. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, you can take a bunch of books back in your suitcase, and it's a lot cheaper than paying $38 a book to ship back to England. That's what the post office charges us. And if I take it to FedEx, it's $88 to ship one book to Europe. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'll...
Yeah, man, if you could bring it back.
Sorry? What did you say?
I said it'd be handy if you could bring it back.
Yeah, that's fine. I did make that offer. Put the
Yeah.
funds in so I can compensate Miller for it. And then I'll bring you the books. Because certainly he's given us all another copy. And there's some of the students are here now. Okay. Next question.
What should we leave on the reference when we send the money across?
Don't worry about that, but just go with the question, and that'll be it. I mean,
There's only one book, so
yeah, Miller's book. Unless you was talking about
just to make sure you know it's me. That's what I mean by reference.
yeah, there's only one book, so
you just put your name on it, my friend.
I need a name and address if you want me to send it through the mail. I got a letter the other day. The man sends me a blank postal money order, and he doesn't put a return address on the envelope or a phone number or anything. It says, send me the book. I'm going like, to where? And so I got the book in the envelope, and it's sitting there in my office. And I figure after about a week or 2 weeks, he's going to call me up and say, hey, where's my book? And I'm gonna say, what's your name? And his name is gonna match up with the envelope, and I'm gonna put his address on there and ship it to him then.
Oh my.
Okay, so hopefully that's brought a closure. Certainly I can do that for you folks. Any other questions? Of course you guys have got questions, start asking them.
Hello, David. This is Chad from Maui.
Hi, Chad.
Hey, that's actually me. I actually included a thank you card. It's actually written. My address is actually written there.
He's the guilty culprit.
Where's
yeah,
that?
I fully. It's a thank you card in there.
Yeah, I just got that yesterday. And
Yeah, my address is written on the thank you card in there.
yeah, I did. Yeah, it's in my card. The mail goes out tomorrow morning.
Oh,
So
actually-
I verified. I verified that I have your information, and it's already in my card to be mailed tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
I wanted to just kind of visualize the whole process of filing a claim with Maui County.
They're not going to let you after we filed that Lodial title.
Doing the claim process.
After we filed the Lodial title on my property, all the courts and county recorder's office in Hawaii were told they're not allowed to accept any Lodial titles or claims for property in Hawaii. They won't file it. They won't let you even in the building. The marshals will come immediately and escort you out of the building because you know correct grammar.
Wow. What about in regard to my actual case, though? This is not going to be for real estate. This will be for actually my case.
I would, because Keely Kahau is in Hawaii there and she's my federal judge, give her a call.
Okay.
And
Okay, Keely.
yeah,
All
Keely
right.
Kahau, K-E-L-I-N-E,
Great if I can get that.
Keyline Kahau, K-A-H-A-U.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. When you're finished, Chad, can you switch off your mic, please?
Yeah, David, my question was like, what is the actual process, the step-by-step of filing claim? What does that look like? You're sending the paperwork through the mail, it comes back to you? Like
No, you gotta go over to the,
That vision, like,
when you wanna file a claim, you've gotta go over to the Bureau of Conveyance in Honolulu. And in the big building with that big roof that goes out, it's on the second floor. They know me there real well. I've been in and out of that building about 50 times. Every time I show up, I got marshals coming in out of the woodwork to surround me.
So, hopefully that answers your question, Chad. If you can switch off your mic when you're done. Thank you. Next question. I'm just going to push your chair out a little bit. This is the table stuff. Yeah, this is all. Thanks. Next question, folks.
Yeah. Hi, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
What's your name?
Ivar from Norway.
Oh, hi Eva, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. So, first I need to ask, did you get the questions I found you, Mark?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that question about myself. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions with me.
Yeah. Okay, Miller. I wanted to ask you about this. You talked about your UFO abduction experience,
yeah.
and I if you could elaborate on that experience, I would really like to hear it.
Well, the people that took me when I was 8 years old in their craft, they asked me to come aboard. It was voluntary. They asked my brother, he said no, when I went up. They put a machine on my head, and it programmed my brain for the things I would need in life. And this whole program, correct parsing, syntax, grammar, my travels around the world, the people I meet, weather events, earthquake events, nuclear weapon events, magma events, 9/11, all these kind of things. The fact that I went to college full-time for 17 years and studied engineering, metallurgy, chemistry, science, medicine, law, and the arts. And all these things became relevant, but it was all in the world of fiction. And then when I wrote the math interface on grammar, I had to go back and redo everything in quantum. And then build the program I've got for my website. All of it, every time I do a seminar, I videotape it to make a permanent record and then post it on the internet so the world can see what's going on. Someday I'm going to die. I've done that 8 times already. I'm still here. So it's about it's like Nikola Tesla. He had a lot of he was the Superman of our time with technology, and he published it and he advertised it, and we have our AC electricity and our internet and our TV and our radio and our Rife machines and our zappers and Diacoms, all from that kind of science. So it's if you make a record and you publish it, if they kill you, it's still there. But if you keep it secret, they kill you and the secrets are lost forever. The greatest crime any of you can ever commit in life is to be smart and not teach, pass on to the young people the things that you learned and the lessons that you've learned that you have been successful at. Always teach your successes to the younger people. And you got to do it through videos and written contracts. That's why Facebook is big and YouTube is big. In my whole program, I get 10 organizations a day call me up and say, you got the driest website on the internet. It's got absolutely no fluff or color or advertising. It's 400 pages long and it gives me a migraine headache. Let me redo it for you in fiction so it's easier to read. And I'm going, you know what? I got 5 billion people on my website. It's the world's largest website with the highest daily traffic of any website out there. Why would I change that? People are tired of being BS'd. They want correctness. And so I built a correctness website. It's going to stay up the way it is. And there's no competition, no plagiarizing in 4 billion websites out there. People may copy my stuff and put it up on another website to enhance it or to increase advertising, but there's no competition where anybody says, I did this first. Now, the whole world's already given me credit. I was the first guy to develop the math interface on grammar. Other people have said that they had done a grammar interface, and when I looked at it, like the Bible codes, for instance, it's doing fiction for fiction. And when I syntax it, it's 100% wrong. So my technology is just like a math problem. Nobody ever went to war over a math problem in the history of mankind because you can do every math problem backwards. And every sentence I write, you can write it backwards. So it means the same thing. You can move all the words around and it still says the same thing. You can't screw it up. The Lord's Prayer that I rewrote on my website, you can take all the synonyms of every word in the Lord's Prayer and interface it one at a time and write 10,000 Lord's Prayers, frontwards and backwards, because it's written both frontwards and backwards. And it always says the same thing. You can't screw it up. And when Pope Paul saw that, he said it was the first time he ever understood the Lord's Prayer. To become a pope, living in a world of adverb-verb, and then seeing quantum language. So he ordered a seminar set up in Austin, Texas, to teach the cardinals, the bishops, and the nuns how to syntax the Bible and rewrite the Bible in correct grammar. It's a pretty big job.
That's the Lord's Prayer out of his book. First thing that we did is we photocopied it, read it, and we understood it. That was me and Will. So that's that. I think what Ava was actually, I think he wanted to share your feelings when he was aboard the vessel, when he was taken.
No, that was it. That was your answer for the UFO. They put a thing on my head. 3.5 hours, 15 minutes later, I was back on my front porch of my house, My mother's been telling the story to everybody for 40 years until she passed last November 28th. And
So crazy.
because she sat there and she watched, they were humanoids, and she saw them and she waved to them. When I was in the Air Force, I had encounters with UFOs, moving 9,500 miles an hour, doing 120-degree turns at that speed. We don't have technology like that on planet Earth anywhere. So, and we had
Yeah.
400 guys on base crowd into the radar center to watch these UFOs on the scopes, and we had 16 F-111 starfighters chase these guys until they ran out of fuel, and they never saw them, but they were watching them on their radar on their planes, setting up grid patterns and chasing these guys at Mach 2. They still couldn't see them. They were moving too fast at 9,500 miles an hour. And that went on for like 3 hours. And then the next day, Blue Book shows up. You know, Blue Book is the UFO boys. Made all 400 of us sign a document that said it was swamp gas.
That's a new word to me, Blue Book. Can you add a little bit more words to that? What Blue Book is?
Blue Book is the official Air Force secret organization to investigate all UFO sightings and reports. And if you get up on the internet and start looking at UFOs, everybody in the world has a 4K smartphone camera under. And when they see a UFO, they photograph it in 4K and they put it up on the internet. I mean, there's thousands of pictures up there. You spend all day looking at them.
Hopefully that answers your question, Ava. Do you have another
Yeah, it
question?
does. Yeah. If I have another one?
Yeah.
Yeah, then I might as well go into... Oh, I have one about the land claim, but we can go into geoengineering, can we? Could we? I mean,
2-inch what?
I don't understand what you said.
could we... my question is, like, what do you know about geoengineering, Miller?
Oh, geoengineering, geological
Yeah.
engineering.
You're talking about what's the name of that organization that's making seeds?
Monsanto.
Monsanto. We have
Yeah, like the...
one day a
the
month.
name of this.
One day a month in Hawaii, about 2,500 people protest Monsanto interfering with the sugarcane, the pineapples, and corn, and there's they create these seeds that can only grow in soil from aluminum oxide contamination. That's where the chemtrails are coming from, the aluminum oxide.
Terminator seeds can only be activated by aluminum in the soil.
And so Monsanto, they get into a country, they give them the seeds really cheap, and so they sign contracts to buy the seeds, and then once they got, after the first year's crop, they up the price 1,000%, and they bankrupt the country because they can't buy the seeds for the food, and they put their own seeds in and they die because the soil's been contaminated now. And then when a geo crop is copyrighted, and if a seed from their copyright lands on private property and influences their crop, and their crop is contaminated, Monsanto goes out and sues them for copyright infringement or intellectual property infringement, and takes their farm and turns it into the Monsanto farm. And I put a stop to that by saying, show me the correct parse, syntax, grammar, contract of your copyright, and you trespassed on private property with your seeds. And I turned it around and showed the farmer how to sue Monsanto for trespassing, and then take their farm and stop the geo process. And we've been doing that all over the planet now.
And that, of course, would be in Oklahoma, the FBI building. There were farmers that helped the building accelerate temperature-wise. And the Canadian Farmers Association, that's on YouTube. They have the story to tell. So Thank you very much for that, Ava. Anybody else with some
Awesome,
questions?
Great to see you, Miller.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ava, if you could switch off your mic.
Can I ask a question?
I'm gonna switch Ava's mic off because I'll get interference. So I heard somebody. Is that Victoria?
Yes, Victoria here.
Yeah, if you can get a little bit closer to the mic, sweetie.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, real good.
Okay. I have a question, if I may, please. I would like to know, is it possible to syntax the Hebrew language? As I am thinking that a Hebrew language, each letter and each word can mean different thing and different concepts. So is it possible to syntax the Hebrew language? And have
Yes.
you done any Hebrew language syntax?
Oh yeah. When I broke the code on this, one of the things that I had to prove was that I could syntax all 5,000 languages on planet Earth. So I went to the Cornell University Dictionary, which is 4 feet thick, and every word that's ever been published in 8,500 years, and symbols and hieroglyphs is in that book. And so I was tested to show how it all works. Now, the Hebrew language, symbolisms and language dates back 6,000 BC. And this technology to break the math interface and grammar had to prove that I could do that also. Now, the Hebrew language only uses consonants. Now, vowels, A, E, I, O, U, sometimes W, sometimes Y. When, like the word by or my, M-Y, there's where Y is used as a vowel. The word try, T-R-Y. But the Y is a hollow sound in these conditions. When you use the word own, you own property, O-W-N. Now we go back to Russia, 1850, where W is now used as a vowel, and you must draw a line over the top of the O and the W to make them a single vowel. So it's O-N, on. You own, you're on your own land. You know, you're on the land, so you own it. It's possession. Possession is 9 points of the allodial title. So, when we looked at the Hebrew language, it was all consonants. In the Hebrew, people, the Jews, were the bankers. And the bankers of the Jews worked with the Persians. Because of the Silk Roads, Persia was then, had all the money on the planet. And so when the Jewish bankers wanted to go ahead and communicate in other languages, the priests would then put the vowels back into the word to make so the contract could be read in favor of the Jewish language. And so they then took those words. If you have a vowel and 2 consonants, it means no contract. And we spent 8,000 hours to prove that over a 2-year process. Russell and I did that. That's all we did for 2 years, to prove a vowel and 2 consonants. A, E, I, O, and U, Y, and W, all the words in the dictionary, all the synonyms in the dictionary, had to look everything up to prove that statement. So then when it came time to translate a language that was 100% consonants into English, they have no prepositional phrases, no prepositions or articles. So we keep the English preposition, the English article, and we place it in the correct area. Now, when you're writing a sentence to do this translation, we do grafting. We write all the prepositions in column 1, all the articles in column 2, or what we call allodial. We use the, this, these, a, for the article. For, of, with, and by are the only 4 prepositions, sometimes against, sometimes, let's see what other one I use in there. Well, yeah, those are only 4. For, of, and with, and by. See, the opposite of for is by, and the opposite of with is of. But when you graft it, see this here is in a graft. Then in column 3 is where you use your facts. Now, the way Mark has laid this out is you can take all the facts in column 3 and move them up and down. It always says the same thing because it still is a fact. If you write this in Hebrew, this first column, a preposition and article, to give us our position lodial phrase, we can then take the Hebrew words and put them in here and move them up and down, and we can then syntax, we can run the right correct Hebrew language. I can do that with the Arabic, Latin, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, German, doesn't matter what it is. I got 150 languages my website's translated into. When I was in China, I put on a presentation. I was there 32 days. I'm an ambassador to China. So when I was there for banking, the Chinese couldn't understand me. And they said, can you write a Chinese-English interface? We had 3 university professors there with PhDs where they teach both the Chinese and English language. They said, well, an interface it's never been done in the history of Chinese or English language. And if we really put our minds to it, they said it would probably take 9 months to write an interface that could be mathematically certified. So it was lunchtime, it was 12 noon, so we broke for lunch. So I took it upon myself, sat down at my computer, and punched in my algorithms that I use to translate all languages, and then 45 minutes later, I wrote the Chinese-English interface, which was a $20 trillion a year windfall for the Chinese government. Of course, being the ambassador, just handing them a paycheck like that, I was pretty popular with the government. So they treated me like royalty and ran me all over China for the next month.
I would love to hear again what happened with the what do you call them, gambling machines, is it?
No, that's
something else.
nothing to do with this. All right, so then after I showed them the English translation, and I actually syntaxed it. I had a big 4-by-8-foot whiteboard, and I put in the English up on top, and then I wrote it in Chinese underneath. Totally blow them away. I don't speak Chinese. I can't read Chinese. But I can syntax the hell out of it, I'll tell you that. So then my smartphone here, as I got the string on here, I hang this around my neck, go to Google Translator, Mandarin Chinese, and when I speak English, my cell phone talks in Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, and when the Chinese person talks to me, it writes it in English and speaks to me in English, just like on Star Trek. And so I went out for 32 days. I'm there, and I'm talking and doing anything I want, just like we sit around here in English and talk. It was pretty cool with this technology, with the translator. But then they said, can you do Russian? Well, same thing. I don't speak Russian or write Russian, but I can syntax Russian. So I wrote a Russian translate interface on my computer. I did it in 4 minutes. They said, what about German? We're a big trade with Germany. Took another 4 minutes to trade that one off. See, once you get this graph done here and you just plug in your languages, it works like a charm. And then I did the Indian language and the Arabic language. And same thing, I can't read it, understand it, all this stuff. But once I have my algorithms to do my comparisons. And here's another thing I'll share with you. The German language, you have your 10, 15, 20, 25 letter words. I mean, who writes like that, right? So I went over to Germany, in Zurich, and this lady was an English-German speaking. I mean, she was the translator. And she says, well, those are actually phrases. You in the English world may use 5 to 7 words in a sentence. We put them all together with no spaces, and that's our word. So technically we're speaking like you do, and we speak it out when we say it, but when we write it as a phrase. But you know what they do in front of every single phrase? They put an adverb. They got 5 words for the, 5 and 4 words for of, and 7 words for with, as a possessive. And so once I had all the prepositions And all the articles written in German next to the English words, I busted that 47-page document in 5 days, syntaxed every single word, and the whole entire German language is written in adverb verb, or adverb adjective pronoun. It was so cool, and I realized after World War I and World War II, the world didn't want the German people, so Rothschild ordered the the language changed into phraseology and adverb verb so they could never have a legal contract to go to war again. In 1917, Stalin goes to Rothschild and says, I got to borrow money to fight this civil war here. So Rothschild says, okay, you can have all the money you want, but you got to remove the article, which is ownership, from your language. And the people are going like, no, that's wrong. And so Stalin killed 80 million people that would not cooperate with removing the article. And that was communism for 70 years. 1917, 70 years, 1987. Now there's a 1-year salvage claim under Title 46, Chapter 781, plus 3-day rescission law. And President Ronald Reagan then says, Gorbachev, tear down that wall at 6 o'clock at night. And the 70-year plus 1-year rescission, 1-year salvage claim, 7-year international bankruptcy, 1-year salvage claim, and 3-day rescission expired at midnight. So Ronald Reagan gets on CNN, worldwide broadcast, 2 billion people, and says, tear down the wall. Well, the bankruptcy was going to end for Russia. Their dollar was going to be worth 10 cents at the stroke of midnight. And the Berlin Wall came down at midnight because all the guards had to leave. They had no jurisdiction anymore. And Russia, or the communist state, was done. And now it became a sovereign country. Out of bankruptcy. And they spent the next 10 years cutting down the Black Forest to keep the wood burners running in the wintertime while they developed their oil drilling and coal development and digging up the ground to get the gold out of it to buy oil to heat themselves. Well, as you know now, they have Russian pipelines. The Arctic Ocean has melted, and all the ports along the north shore of Russia are open to get oil from the Middle East and ship their products to Europe in the United States through the Northwest Passage.
Thank you very much. For those people that want to know a little bit more about passe, let me... How do you pronounce that? Diphthong. Diphthong.
That's the bar over the OW.
I don't know if you guys are able to read that.
No, you can't see that.
So what I'll do is I'll... diphthong.
These are both 4K screens. So you got 4,000 lines a second passing and they can't see each other. That's why it's white.
Cancelling each other
They
out.
cancel, yeah.
He's doing the maths problem I'm having. He's giving me the mathematical solution to it. Don't do it. Thank you. Can I paraphrase a couple of things? What Miller is saying in regards to the Germans not making war and the Russians not being able to now agree upon any words in their vocabulary so they can't make contract is another word or another process what we all know as being the Tower of Babel or Tower of
Babel.
Tower of Babel. So essentially that is what is happening, is that they can't agree upon, the carpenter can't agree upon with the masonry can't agree upon with the people that service the mud or whatever it is. Nobody can agree upon anything. As a result, the Germans can no longer make the war machine, and the Russians cannot contract with each other, and they need a external contractor to be able to draw up contracts for them, and they don't have jurisdiction because somebody else drew it up. Put that in a grand scale, they have no contract, no vocabulary, no language, they're all foreign to each other, full stop. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so the Russian Supreme Court, after we won the case at Battle-Off-Russia in 1997, invited me to come to Moscow and teach the Supreme Court the English-Russian math interface and quantumize the Russian language so that their courts would be correct. And the United States government would give me a visa to leave the country. But it did shut down all what's called a replevins worldwide at the United Nations, that no country could create a replevin to allow their citizens to leave their country and negotiate or sue their country with a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit in another country.
I'm not familiar with that word. Can you say it again?
It's called replevin. And re means no, so it's a no pleading document. The United States refused to accept the quantum lawsuit or for me to prosecute them. So I went over to Vladivostok, Russia, and I prosecuted the judge in Anchorage, Alaska. And the judge ruled in my favor. And then he said, hey, you know what, your guy just punched a hole in the world. We better check this out. And so he sent it over to The Hague. In The Hague, all 17 judges looked at the quo warranto complaint and said, this is written in correct grammar. This is a correct lawsuit. It's in now time. All the words and the jurisdiction of the words are accounted for. And so one of the permanent Supreme Court judges is a Russian Supreme Court judge. So the Russian Supreme Court judge goes back to Russia and says, send that lawsuit over here to the Supreme Court of Russia. Russia spends 2 weeks tearing it apart, calls back to Vladivostok, Russia, at the judge there and says, you did it right. Take as many of these cases as Miller wants to give to you. And it was an embarrassment against the United States, and all contracts between the United States and Russia, I mean, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars a year were canceled immediately because of that lawsuit and the replevin. It created such a banking stir at that point in history that the post office shut down the entire world post office for a week because of my lawsuit. And they had to go check all the mail to make sure that no replevins were getting offshore. Then the United Nations met an emergency council to shut down the word replevin and take it out of the systems in all countries, that senators in their countries could not issue replevins to anybody to take a lawsuit from one country to another country and sue them. So then on August 12, 1999, when I went to the United Nations and I sued the Congress, the Senate, the legislature, and the Supreme Court for the copyrights of the flag of America written in correct parsing, syntax, grammar, the Congress, Senate, legislature, Supreme Court, President of the United States could not produce an oath of office written in correct grammar or a lawsuit or a copyright for the flag. And so when I went to court, nobody showed up, and so the United Nations Court awarded me the copyrights to the flag 1 to 1.9 to red, white, and blue that's on my website and on my books and on my business cards as the correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, grammar flag. And then all 250 countries worldwide honored a grammar flag. So now I had a flag. They also accepted my Constitution, my bank treaty, 115 pages long, which we gave to the United Nations in 82 countries. That was about 96 cents on a dollar worldwide. We didn't worry about countries that didn't have banking, so we only took care of the banking countries. Then what happened after that? They said, what land do you claim? Because now you have a flag, a constitution, and a bank treaty, and a post office. What country are you claiming? And I said, I claim the land of the courtroom floor during the time of contract, because that was the only land mass on planet Earth that people for 8,500 years never claimed. And so I got it as last man standing. And I got it in quantum language too. So every time I walk in with a quantum contract in a courtroom, I am the director of that courtroom. I have jurisdiction as the Supreme Court judge of that courtroom and the chief postmaster general of that courtroom. So that courtroom I own, and my word is law in that courtroom, but it has to be in quantum, and only the terms on the quo warranto complaint or the contract can be used. No other secondary arguments. You can't reach up and grab Black's Law Dictionary or Webster's Dictionary or the revised statutes of any state or government and bring it into the land of the courtroom floor, because only that Constitution, or that quo warranto, becomes a Constitution at that point in time between only the names on that contract. But that becomes our country. And so we only do grammar. And we look at the syntax and the syntax fraud of the insurance companies, of the mortgage companies. Because once you take away, in the banking, that was the third one, the banking. Once you do those three things, the world's not going anywhere, you know? That's pretty well captures all the money, captures all the land, captures all the titles, captures all the contracts. And that makes me Pandora. And who is Pandora? Pandora is the protector of the world in correction, but Pandora in the world of fiction is the destroyer. And they've been making Earth a slave colony and destroying all the people on the planet through wars using fiction language. But when you use correct parsing, syntax, grammar, Pandora becomes the meek. The meek shall inherit the earth. And so the meek is absolute power to teach correctness. That's what that means. So I'm fulfilling my destiny in this world. And I publish on the internet because I can talk to the whole world. On April 6, 1988, when I broke the code, and I published on the internet, and I sent it out to 100 newspapers and magazines and radio and TV stations, what I had done. I had written up about an 8-page document. I had sent it to them as a fax, or email, excuse me, as an email. And then the next day I had 2 Secret Service agents at my door going, "Who did you tell?" I said, "Everybody." So because I told everybody, I protected my life, because it was now worldwide public knowledge. And so the cat was out of the bag. I opened Pandora's box. I became Pandora. The king has new clothes. You know the story.
Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hans. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I got one more.
Yeah, who's this?
Will.
Oh, hi, Will.
Hey, Mark, do you mind if I share a courtroom experience you and I had with the judge to get his take on what took place?
Yeah.
Yeah, help yourself, but get a little bit closer to the mic, please, Will.
How's that?
Yeah,
Better.
okay, better.
Okay. Hey, Judge. Mark and I helped a friend with a case. It was a business, they call it business rates over here in the UK. It's like, business tax. And he wrote his claim, his claim against their claim in quantum, with postage stamps, autographs, thumbprints, that kind of thing, and put it in a bundle with evidence and, chain of evidence, and it's a live life claim and that. He sent it into the courtroom a few days before on time, and then Mark, him and I and a couple other guys went in. When they called the court case, we went to the court and we waited outside the courtroom, and he handed another copy to the bailiff or the usher, and the usher walked into the courtroom, and before he could come out, after about 5 minutes, we all went in, and things happened like Mark shouted, when we got in, we saw the backs of the magistrates going through the door to the back. Yeah, they left. They got up and left the courtroom. The clerk of the court was still there, and the plaintiffs were still there. And Mark shouted something like, none of you are in court. And our friend shouted something like, "I remove all boxes and planes." And then they tried to throw us out. And they came out again, and then they left again, and then they made us sit in the public gallery. Now, because he went in there as as a fact, against their fiction. I've always wondered what happened there, and I wanted your take on that. If I've
Fact-
given enough information.
Okay, one, fact and fiction can never meet. And every time the judge walked out, he broke the continuance of evidence of now time. So every time he walked back in, it was a brand new hearing. Just because everybody's sitting there on different planes, when you said all planes are dissolved, then the judge gets up, walks out, comes back in, he broke the continuance of evidence of the conversation, the planes are reestablished. And the boxes are still there. Because Mark didn't say it again, now he's accepting the planes because the judge didn't come down off his plane and sit across the table from Mark. The penalty for that is a $10,000 fine, and the second time it's death.
To me?
No, to the judge.
Against the judge.
Yeah, the judges will be, the judges, in my 20 years, 8 judges have been killed because they left the bench and sat across the table from me, and within a week they were dead.
I can share that experience. I know what Will is talking about now. This is what actually happened. They called the security. I sometimes get a little bit emotional, and the person that we was helping, let's call him B, because his name is copyrighted, so he doesn't give me permission to use it. When we went in, I got a little bit emotional because the security guards tried to stop us. They never touched us. And B just simply said like that to me, and I just walked right past them. And Will remembers the document hitting the ground. And after when the document hit the ground, and I don't remember that, but Will says it happened, they ran out. That's when they ran out. Okay? And the clerk of the court, I remember that very clearly. The clerk of the court, before she opened her mouth, made sure that the husher was off the well of the court, because I kept a very close eye on what was happening. And then she asked her, do you remember them giving us any documents or anything? Then the husher, when she was out of the well of the court, lied.
Yeah, but they weren't in court then, because
Yeah,
the
of
court
course.
didn't matter what they said.
Because she's off the plane.
She's off the plane, and when the document hit the floor,
That was your courtroom.
the vessel landed, the vessel docked in the courtroom, and it then became a quantum courtroom under that contract. As
And-
long as you have it in the air, it's called a kite, K-I-T-E. Just like a toy kite, it's flying in the air, hasn't docked yet. Until it docks and it's on the floor of the courtroom, then that becomes the land of correctness. See?
And as I remember it, they left and completely left the courtroom. Will captured the courtroom, and they didn't come back in. I think he captured it under. They left the courtroom while competition was in play, game was in play. So as they didn't come back, we waited in the courtroom as long as we could, and then we didn't want to leave. So we went into where the audience would sit, waiting for them to come back to confront them. We was quite happy to do that because we had our postage stamps and we can go anywhere we want in the courtroom. That's how I remember it. Is that the case you're talking about, Will?
Yes, B's case, but they made a ruling against him out of the courtroom in private, so he had to pay. In the end.
Okay, well that was that.
What they did there is they attacked his nom de guerre or pseudium dead person.
Yes, they did.
His driver's license was written in nom de guerre. So they put the lien against his driver's license and said if you don't pay it, you're going to lose your license. Then you can't drive your car, go to work, and your life is destroyed. You may be correct as a living, breathing, live life in what you're doing, where they can't grab the vessel of your body, but they attack your documents, your mortgage, your MasterCards, and they, because those were fiction. So they attack fiction for fiction, fact for fact.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else,
Thank you.
Will?
Thanks, Judge.
Okay. Somebody else? Yeah. If you can say your name out clearly, that would be good. Justin. I can't hear you. I think it's Danny or Justin.
Justin in Ireland.
I can't hear you properly. You'll have to get closer to the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Vaguely. If you can
I
get...
can hear you, Justin. Go ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you, when you want to start to learn parsing syntax grammar, it just seems such a big chunk size that I can't actually absorb it. Is there a beginning level that you can learn to do this and then expand that? Because I find it sort of too big a chunk size to process.
How to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Where do you start? But it just seems
Just
too
pick up a hymn book and start looking at the words. They're already broken up in parsing. It doesn't matter what religion, they're all written in parsing. Every song, you can pull any song off the internet, like on Pandora, and they'll have the words that you can watch the words while the music is playing. There's a lot of music programs that you can download, and the words are there, but they're all parsing. All music worldwide, no matter who writes it, has to write it in parsing, and that's where you learn it.
Can I paraphrase?
Yes.
Look up Return to Sender, one of Elvis Presley's songs. You'll find it's written in music, and it will have the word elongated to match the pacing of the music, whether it's 3/4 or whatever it is, and it will be hyphenated. Each sound that the singer would sing is a word in itself. So if it's like Christopher, which is 3 sounds, it will be hyphenated. Each sound is a word in itself. That's the answer. Am I correct?
Yeah, and when you see the words, and just like if I say the word now, N-O-W, as long as I do, and I can say the word now as a quick word, or I can say the word now. See? So that it'll show a N and a O, and then they'll have a long line, maybe inch and a half long before the W shows up. But if you look at your computer keyboard, there's what's called the long dash. Now, if you want to read the secrets, both in the Masonic codes and in the Bible, anything you read in the Bible, watch for the long dash. It's about 1/4 inch long. And that's where the sentence stops. There might be 2-3 pages of text in there. And you go real careful through that. And all of a sudden, like, you're going to see another long dash. That's the end of the sentence 3 pages before. And those are secret codes built into the Bible, the Quran, to the Masonic codes of how to read and read correct. Don't read correctly, because that's an adverb. You read correct.
So if I got your book, is it self-explanatory, or do you need some
it's broken up where it starts off explaining the parts of speech, the dictionary, so that you know the correct words and the wrong words. And then it goes into about 30 different topics. What is a flag? Because vessels have to fly flags. You're not supposed to use modifications with adverbs and adjectives and pronouns. How to write correct sentence structure. And then there's sample quo warranto complaints. There's a paternity and divorce contract already written. You got to change the names, of course. But it's a performance contract. It's not a she did, he did. It's I want to perform love and goodness for my children. Don't ever talk about money when it comes to your kids in a divorce court, because you're going to get slammed with money and you won't see your kids. You want to talk about love and cherish and nurturing and how much time you can spend with them. The law already in another location has got how much money you're going to pay, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So, if anybody gets problems in that department, I've been president for Families for Equal Rights since 1985, 33 years in Washington, D.C. So when they get cases that are so convoluted that the local court system is having problems with, the judges are told to tell them to contact me, and I'll fix it.
Yeah.
I'll set them down, I'll marriage counsel with them, and show them how to communicate and stop fighting. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that.
All right. Anybody else?
Hello, Raven. Hear me?
Yeah, I think I heard Raven first.
All right. My question is, David, do you have a number of how many correct sentence structure citizens are on this globe?
No. Like I say, I got 5 billion already logged onto my website that are studying. And those people are talking to their friends. And my support groups all over the world that just like what Mark is running here, they get the books and they have meetings and they tear apart the books and have meetings. And then I get emails and we do webinars all the time. I can't go to Canada, I can't go to Australia, so we do webinars on Skype. You know, they're not going to keep anything out. Word's going to get out there no matter what.
And I just also heard that, since you just said you can't come to Canada, that Canada just came out of this bankruptcy.
Canada came out of bankruptcy 2018. They went into bankruptcy in 1947. So they had 70 years, 1917, and 1 year salvage claim plus 3-day rescission, and now Canada's sovereign. In 2002, wait a second here. In 2002, I was in Canada doing a seminar, and I was telling people about the true Canadian flag. And the true Canadian flag are 3 green maple leaves on a brown field with blue edges, stripes. And what happens, that was the live Constitution of Canada, 1947. 15 minutes later, they filed bankruptcy. So the life was dead in bankruptcy. What happens to a maple leaf in the winter? It turns red and falls on a bed of snow. Henceforth, a single red maple leaf on a white background. They advertised it right in front of everybody. We're in bankruptcy. And now that they're coming out of bankruptcy, and I told them about the flag, I had 3 senators from Canada in my audience, and they're going, how do you know about that flag? I've never heard of that. How do you know where it's kept? We never heard of that. I says, well, do your homework. You're a senator. He spent 4 months going all over Canada to find out about the bankruptcy of Canada and look up the original Constitution. So finally he calls me up and says, I can't get anywhere. Nobody will talk to me. He says, well, call Queen Elizabeth. Get permission to go to the Postmaster General of Canada. She's Postmaster, and they'll show you, go in the archives, and they'll show you the information I told you. So he went and he checked that out, and sure enough, everything I told him at the seminar, the flags, the Constitution, the timelines, spot on everything. He says, you live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you're not even Canadian. How the hell do you know all this stuff? I says, you don't need to know why I know things, or who I know, or where I know them from. I gave you the information. Now it's your turn to do something with it. I says, there's a million pieces of information out there that are secret, that people need to know. And I've been publishing some really heavy stuff, you know, like nuclear weapons used through magma to attack countries to make it look like an earthquake, using the HARP program with laser beams to heat up low pressure systems in the Aleutians, North Pacific, to create weather patterns, or off of Africa to create super hurricanes for property damage. You guys all know about Houston, Texas. 70% of all the people don't have flood insurance. They have flood insurance, but they only have flood insurance if your water pipe breaks, or if your hose on the dryer, on the washing machine breaks. They don't have flood insurance if it's raining and the water comes up, or if the ocean rises and their houses are underwater. A flood is a flood. Read the fine print. So I went out and I syntaxed Midwest Century, controls 25 of the largest insurance companies in the United States. Geico, Prudential, State Farm, Allstate, farmers, and guess what I found out? They're all written by Mid-Century Insurance. They're all identical policies. They are 125% fraud. There is not a single fact in the entire insurance policy. And everything that you think you have, you don't get. And only one person in 1,000 gets paid what they're supposed to, like a $200,000 damage for a $200,000 damage. All the rest of the people get 10 cents on a dollar or 1 cent on a dollar for personal injuries because you can't show pain. You can't prove pain. And if you read your policy about how you're being hurt, it doesn't say anything. It's written in adverb verb. And then you go into court and you want to fight about it, and they don't give you anything. So you hire an attorney that's only going to write in adverb verb, but because he's using fictitious conveyance of language, false and misleading statements, to sue a fictitious conveyance of language and false and misleading statement insurance company, that's a co-conspiracy. And so the insurance company throws the lawyer a bone, and the client gets a little bit of money, the attorney gets a little bit of money, and it looks like they're paying, but they're not paying. They're only paying 10 cents on a dollar, but they advertise the big ones on TV all day long to say, well, we do pay these big claims. That's why our insurance is so expensive. But it's not. You know, in the state of Wisconsin, we got 3.5 million deer run around in our state. People move to a rural area and say, I'm out of the city. No problem. It's not if you're going to hit a deer, it's when you're going to hit a deer. And at 60 miles an hour, a 150-pound deer is going to crush the whole front of your car and put you in the ditch and total your car out. And so your car insurance living in the rural areas where the deer populations are out of control are more expensive than living in the cities. So when you look at it, you know, go on my website, I bet you'll find your insurance policy under insurance fraud already syntaxed on my website.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Raven?
There was a lot of beautiful information there.
Well, you know, when you ask me a question, I've got to take it apart and show you all the arms of an octopus that your question opens up and cross-references with why that question had to be asked in the first place and the things that affect that question. So every time you ask me a question, I gotta figure out, did I answer your question? Or are you satisfied with the answer? Because you're gonna get a lot more than you asked for.
Well, the depth of the question is, as the citizens of correct sentence structure, what is our duty when we are living our lives in the midst of all these restrictions? Now, as you said it yourself, well, the courts don't take any facts in. You know, I've had a lot of experiences myself in Hawaii. I'm doing a mortgage with yourself on a property, and I've got to see a lot of these challenges firsthand. And basically, when conversing with the bureaucracy of fiction, they don't converse. We all know that. So what remains is us together. We've got Mark as a strong man there, yourself, Russell, and all the people who are part of this conversation and across the globe as to what is our next step. I think a lot of words that I hear from people who start is basically, what do we do to strengthen our lives, aside from saying something correct that doesn't impact our lives directly.
Well, when people, okay, you saying how can you help? Start an organization. Have a bunch of your friends over. Your family comes over. Put one of my open up your computer and let my seminar run on that computer. You know, I'm doing a seminar, right? I got 50 people there. And I just for the heck of it, I took one of my DVDs and I popped it in my computer of me talking at one of my other seminars. I couldn't get the people to sit down and listen to me because they were watching my video. You see, and my brother Richard, he's an over the road semi driver who runs from Milwaukee to Philadelphia every week. So he stops at a truck stop, and all the truck stops along the way know him. He takes my video and he puts it on the DVDs that they have at all the truck stops, and he gets on the CB radio and says, "I'm putting on Federal Judge David Wynn Miller's videos at this truck stop." In 15 minutes, the whole entire parking lot is full of semis, and everybody's in there for 6 hours watching my videos at the truck stops. How to get out of traffic tickets being a semi driver because they're harassed by the police and the sheriff's department. He's been doing that for 18 years. And now all the semis in the United States know my name and have watched my videos traveling across country. All the way stations in the United States have been taken out because of my programs.
I remember my tutor, David Anthony, told me a particular story that you guys used to do. You used to punch the tickets yourself, but when the trucks used to go through the weighbridges. So perhaps you can add a few words, but I thought I'd put that out there. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Could I ask a question, Mark?
Yeah, sure. Just introduce yourself.
Hello, David. Hello,
Hi.
Mark. I am Evan from Utah, and I'm very privileged and honored to be here. My question is, what would you recommend, or what do you wish the younger generations would know or do? Thank you for your work.
Well, what happened in my own house based on younger generations, my son is 9, my grandson is 6. And I have a VHS player with a 12-inch color TV. And the two boys are, this happened about 10 years ago. No, it's been 20 years, so that's 20 years ago. The two boys are sitting there playing Nintendo games. And they accidentally bumped the remote control, and Grandpa shows up on TV doing his lecture. And my grandson, Al, he says, "Hey, Paulie, look it, Grandpa's on TV." And so they sat there watching. 6 hours they sat there and watched me on TV. And they both came up for dinner 6 hours later and said, "They lied to us in school. Everything we're learning is a lie." Both of the kids, 6 and 9 years old, understood what correct parsing syntax grammar was when it was all diagrammed out for them. And when you show my videos to young people, and they go back to school and ask the teacher, "Teacher, when are you going to teach the correct parsing syntax grammar?" The teacher says, "You get an F, get out of my class." You know what a principal is there for? To make sure that no teacher teaches correct grammar. They tried to pull that on my daughter when she was a high school senior. And she asked the teacher that question, and they kicked her out of class, said, "You get an F." Well, she went to see the head priest. Says, "Hey, you know who I am?" And the head priest goes, "Yeah." "You know my dad?" He says, "Yeah, he's a federal judge." He says, "He paid for my tuition in gold eagles." "Yeah, I did. The only person in 2,800 students." And the Pope had to be involved with that because I'm a keymaster with the Vatican. So the cardinal says to her, "Go back to class and send the teacher down here." Teacher comes back 10 minutes later and says, "I apologize to you, Katie." And she got an A for English.
Thank you very much.
Young people want correctness. They don't like to be lied to. If you raise a child in a second grade reading level for their whole life, that's all they're ever going to acquire is a second grade reading level. The whole planet, 12 billion people. I don't care if you got a PhD or a doctor, lawyer, businessman, whatever. You might know math, you might know science, you might be able to build a house. But write a sentence. Answer a math problem. What's 4 plus 4 divided by 4? And, you know, I did that to 200 Americans and they all said 2. Except you divide first. 4
Right.
divided by 4 is 1, and 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 is the correct answer, yes. You cheated, you used your computer.
You finished with the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
You know what I should do? The triangles.
Oh,
I don't know how
okay.
many of these guys know it, huh? Okay, I'm going to show you guys something. Anybody can read it. Read what it says in the 3 triangles.
Can you go to full screen?
Oh, it's backwards. I'd have to actually put it in a mirror and then put it up there. Look at that, it's all backwards.
They still be able to read it. I'll send you guys a scan of that. But you've seen it before.
There's Paris in the spring.
Can you read that?
Once in a lifetime. Bird in the yard. Oh, bird in the heron, sorry.
Is it the first line to the second line to the third line?
No, each triangle. Read what it says in each triangle.
Can you go to full screen?
The second triangle, the first line doesn't make any sense. It's O space N-O-R.
No, the computer is making it appear backwards to you. So you gotta read backwards.
Is this a trick?
Get a mirror. Somebody get a mirror.
It says Paris in the spring, once in a lifetime, bird in the hand.
Okay, now count how many words are in each triangle.
I see something different. I see Paris in the spring.
Yeah, they're
Once
two
in a lifetime. Bird in the hand.
There you go, you got it right.
Is that
You see, but you read 4, but you counted 5.
What the hell just happened?
I said read what it says in the triangle. You presume everything that you do. That's the problem with everybody. You use your left use your left brain to read romance, but you use your right brain to count how many words are there.
Was that Tona who worked that one out?
And you guys thought you were a victim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was looking at it and I was trying to write it down since he held it up, for a bit of a time. And as I was writing, I was like, hey, double.
Okay.
Me and Tona did a lot of work on our documents.
I just, what does that mean for the bigger picture?
It means, can I answer it?
What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that you read 4, but you counted 5. The instruction was...
Imagine the impact that's having on you just not knowing.
You don't... somebody hands you a mortgage contract or a traffic ticket and you pay it. Or you sign a mortgage with 4,700 mistakes on it. You buy an insurance policy, it's 125% fraud. Because somebody told you you have to have this policy. But it doesn't say anything. You're never going to collect on it. It's just a hidden tax. And when you put it all together, it's 87 cents on a dollar goes to the government in some form. And you get 13 cents to live on for room, board, food, clothing. You're a slave.
Wow. Thanks so much. That was awesome. Good.
I think he's still recovering from what you showed. Thank you.
Say quantum language, you pay attention. If I gave you a math problem, you would pay attention to get it right. And then you would even check it to get it right. But if I wrote something down in grammar, doesn't matter what language, you would presume it's okay. As long as it made sense in your head, but the last thing you would do is look at the syntax. If I say, I don't know if Mark's probably said this to you guys, but the bridge is over the water. That's adverb, verb, adverb, verb, adverb, verb. And there's no such thing as a verb bridge, a verb over, or a bridge water. Water verb. So, but if I put for in front of it, I have to write a sentence, for the bridge is over the water. Now I have to go ahead and underneath that I have to say for and over are prepositions. The is an article. Water and bridge are facts, and is a verb thinking. You're only allowed one verb in a sentence. I took jurisdiction for each word and identified its syntax. So the person in court, the judge, cannot come back and say, you didn't take control of those words. I'm going to say that for is an adverb, modifying the adverb the, which modifies the adjective bridge, which modifies the pronoun is, and then because is a pronoun, the for is an adverb, so it would have to modify the adverb the, which modifies the verb water. You see, he could change it because you didn't take jurisdiction for it. So don't make presumptions about just because you wrote a contract that it's going to be accepted. Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 44 and 44.1. All human beings are foreign to each other. That's 12 billion people. The language they speak is babble. We call you prosate. P-R-O is know, S-A is speak. So you are no speaks. If you know write and you know speak and you walk into my courtroom, you are trespassing on my foreign vessel in dry dock. Do you have a seaman's pass to be there? Do you have a contract to be there? Do you have your paperwork to be there? A drogue law to anchor yourself in my courtroom? Do you have a passport to leave the territory of England or the United States and then walk into a foreign vessel? You might as well run down to the local dock and jump on a Chinese freighter or a Russian freighter without any paperwork, and I guarantee you'll be arrested, thrown in the brig, taken back to their country, and put in prison for 8 years for trespassing. The same thing happens when you go into a court. Everything is babble. The only thing that judge has got in front of him is your vessel body that's now trespassed. He doesn't have to go into the language of what your traffic ticket is, or your divorce contract, or anything else. The only thing he has to do is assess you for damages trespassing on his vessel and throw you in the brig or his jail until such time that you're willing to give him anything to get out of that and go back to your life. Does that make sense, you guys?
Okay. Yeah, David, that makes perfect sense. Thanks so much. But when you said about your left brain and your right brain, I understand one is the creative, one is the analytical. And we are like, are we right brain? That's how they want us to be right brain?
When I went to school, I had broken my right hand when I was 4 years old. And it took almost a year for it to heal, so I was left-handed, and I wrote left-handed. Well, when I went into class, the teachers cracked me on my left hand and says, you're not allowed to use your left hand. You have to write with your right hand. And anybody in the class that wrote with their left hand got their knuckles cracked with a ruler. Back then, the teachers could hit the students and use a stick on them and whip them. They changed all that about 1958, though. They took all that out. But in the meantime, I said, well, I can't write. My hand's broken. It's in a cast. I got to write left-handed. So I developed my left brain. And so when I finally got my right hand back, I could write both left and right. I can write forward with both hands at the same time. I can write backwards both hands with at the same time. I can write left and right with both hands and right and left with both hands. And it looks like a mirror of each other every time I do it. And I do that on all my seminars. When I end my seminar, I do that on the whiteboard. I say, thank you for coming to my seminar. See you next year.
So we would understand that as being truly ambidextrous.
Yeah. That I see everything frontwards and backwards. I read 400 words a second in math codes. That's why as fast as I flip papers, I'm reading, but I'm syntaxing too in math codes. So I'm seeing if this is bullshit or if, excuse my French, or if I actually got some real material here to read. So that's what I got to say about that.
Is it just about breaking the spell and the code, the decode out the program just by parsing syntax, right? Being correct.
If you know, yes, once you learn this, no one will ever be able to lie to you again.
Wow. Yeah, because it seems like we like unless you know this stuff, you're kind of screwed. You're in the dark.
Yeah, they're going to rape you. They're going to take everything you got. They'll let you work as a slave and build up as much as you want, and then when you stop working and start harvesting, they'll harvest you first.
Thank you very much, Tarek. And anybody else?
Hello?
Yeah, if you can just say your name out loud and ask the question.
Hi, Dave. Hi. Are there any, let's say, 5 sentences in the parsing syntax grammar that we could use in nearly every case, when somebody is sending a letter to us? Could we just answer them in 5 simple sentences, asking them for the correct parsing syntax grammar?
Do you mean 5 words or 5 sentences?
Sentences, I think.
Oh, go up on my website.
What is the minimum necessary to reboot their claim?
Oh, when somebody asks you a question in fiction, you syntax it. And then you say, for the claimant's knowledge of the facts are with the claim of the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar, performance, or the laws, rules, regulations, and codes by the prosecuting attorney, and with a correct parse, syntax, grammar, oath of office for the avoidance of the perjury. That pretty well covers everything.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I know there's a lot of people waiting to ask questions. Is that Dex?
Yeah, hi.
No, it's me.
Yeah, go on, Dex.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Judge. How you doing?
Good.
I'm Dax from Melbourne, Australia.
Okay, been there, done that. Had lots of fun and won a lot of money at the casino.
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question about the history of Australia when we talk about Ned Kelly and bush rangers and things like that.
Okay.
Because I've got a guy that next door neighbor that harasses us, and we got a restraining order against him, but he still keeps on behaving in that sort of manner, and then the cops just come and they just give him a slap on the wrist. They put him in jail, and then he comes back and he just trespasses again and bashes the cars and everything. So if you could just share some knowledge about why Australia is like this, and they don't take the law seriously.
You don't have any laws, rules, regulations, and codes in Australia. They're all written in fiction. The only time you win your case is when you go and you challenge the fiction and they throw it out.
Dex, can I perhaps paraphrase this a little bit? What can you do?
Sure, Mark.
What can you do yourself to get that neighbour off your back, as it were? To get the police to make sure that he behaves himself is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay, if you can ask that would be good.
Well, I'm yet to be Mark's student. I've booked an appointment with him, and I'm going to see him in 2 weeks. So I'm not really studied parse or anything like that. So I'm not sure how I'm going to go about this. Yeah.
How would you go about it, Dave, if your neighbour was harassing you?
Well, once the restraining order was in place, I would go down to your local police department with the restraining order in hand, and don't talk to the cops, talk to the captain. Explain to the captain about the conduct of good behavior in your community, and why you have to take this individual and have a restraining order in the first place for stalking and property damage, and say, is this, are the police here for protecting good citizens, or are the police here to further allow an individual to cause damage like that? And if you go into Corporation Act 2001 for Australia, I'm a federal land court judge for New South Wales, Australia, and New Zealand. I've been there. I've spent 3 years in Australia. Prosecuted 129 judges down there. And then the State Department took away my visa, so I couldn't go back to Australia. So I got to be a little bit too bold for myself, I guess you could say. The originaries called me the spirit walker because prosecuting judges is still walking around without getting a bullet in the head, and that was something that everybody else got shot, where I didn't get shot. So they were kind of wondering about that. So if you go down there and you talk to these men, and if he won't protect you, then you make a phone call to Internal Affairs about the conduct of the police not doing their job. They're taking a paycheck. That's misappropriations. And then if that doesn't work, you can always go to your Senate of New South Wales, over in Melbourne there, and give them a call and explain how the local authorities are not protecting you as a citizen. You pay taxes, you vote, you work, you're quiet, you don't cause nobody no trouble, except you have this individual that for some reason has a problem. And they pick up the phone, they make a phone call, and excuse my French, but shit falls downhill. And when it starts at the top, you get high enough on there, and they start making statements or calling down, going, "You like your job, Captain? This other guy likes his job. You guys are all going to lose your jobs. If I hear my phone rings here one more time, problem over."
Thank you very much.
We kill flies on glass windows with 20-pound sledgehammers, but we don't break the window.
I think you paraphrased it beautifully.
Yes.
Control.
All right, thanks, Judge. Thanks very much.
Hi,
Hello?
Yeah, who's this?
this is Victoria again. I'm just having a thought, if I may, if I'm not interrupting somebody else.
No, you're good, Victoria. What's it?
Thank you. Just about this, the previous question was about how to go about stopping this person trespassing, and the reply was to question the authorities to move upwards to correct this person. But when the authorities seem to be the problem, what do you do then? And when you feel and you experience that the courts are part of the problem, i.e. in child trafficking, what are we meant to do about this? Because this is something that is very close to my heart, but I find it very difficult to come to any sort of solution to how to help solving this problem, which is also a global problem.
See this? It's called a cell phone. It's got a 4K camera on it. There's always somebody watching. Videotape it. Put it up on YouTube. Bad conduct on YouTube. It'll go viral. They want tourism. You think tourists are going to come there and be terrorized because you got problems with the people? The government's going to put a stop to that real quick. So get out there and you can set up motion sensor cameras. They do that for wildlife. You got to spend a little money to catch the guy, but he's gonna walk into a video trap. He's going to incriminate himself on video for bad conduct, put it up on the internet, and of course the phones are going to ring. He's going to get arrested, and this time he's not going to be able to argue his way out of a jury looking at the video for bad conduct. And you can you can collect money damages. Then there's criminal damages, trespass damages, because if the law enforcement don't do their jobs, then their oath of office gets syntaxed and put up on the internet, showing that they don't have an oath of office, that you're paying taxes and you're not being protected.
But the trafficking seemed to be quite sophisticated. So it's also a case of perhaps like social services that make a lot of money on it. There is evidence like paper trails where the money is being shared when they take the kids to foster homes, and they do child work in foster homes, and the courts and police are part of the syndicate, and you just cannot get to this problem. This is what I'm wondering, is there like one sort of global document that could be done to be used against this? Because I think this is like something that is really should be priority in our world, children.
All right, when I went to I got nowhere with local state issues. When I took it to the feds said, that's out of our venue, that's out of our jurisdiction. The state can't come in ours, we can't go in theirs. So everybody is compartmentalized, and they don't want to get involved.
That's it.
And because they'll be stepping on somebody else's friends or somebody else's families' toes, you know?
Yeah.
But when you put it up on the internet, the community, then it becomes relevant for the community. That they don't want bad conduct in the community because it gives them a bad name. And it'll blow back on them from higher ups. You see, every time the local police arrest somebody, you're guilty until proven innocent. Then they slander you all over the newspapers and embarrass you. Even if they dismiss the case and do nothing, you've still been embarrassed publicly in the newspapers and on TV. And so, you can do the same thing as they're doing to you, you can do it to them by YouTube. So if they don't want the bad press, then they're going to cooperate. And it all comes down to cooperation. So, and you do tell people, well, if we have freedom of the speech, and freedom of the press, and freedom of the grievance, the three basics that the English Empire, you got Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the United States, Canada, we're out there advertising this, England, that you have all these freedoms. And yet, they're not listening to their own conduct. And they don't need the embarrassment of having a YouTube video showing where the police aren't doing their job or somebody's getting a kickback. There's a TV show at Denzel Washington, a movie, American Gangster, where he brought in the heroin trade to Harlem, New York City. And 60% of all the police officers in New York City were dealing heroin, and public officials were on the payroll. And they all got busted. Compton, California, Los Angeles, second largest county in the United States. The Crips and the Bloods took over Compton County. And then the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department arrested all employees that work for Compton County. You go on the internet, just type in Compton, California, on Wikipedia, and look at the history where organized crime took over a county. And to get rid of the competition, they arrested the competition for drug trade, prostitution, graft, so that they could run with no interference. But then the LA counties are bigger. They came in and they arrested everybody. The FBI was there, military was there.
Did you say earlier that there was a court? Was it in The Hague? Was that the ICC court? Was that in the
International Criminal Court? Okay, International Criminal Court was set up back in 2005 with Roe, R-O-A, and myself. After I'd won 4 cases with the Hawaiians at the International Peace Palace, they realized that the criminal activity that was taking place with fiction was a problem. So Roe and I interviewed 179 judges, federal judges from around the world to sit on the International Criminal Court. And none of them could read and write above a second grade reading level. Roe was willing to accept any of them. I disqualified all of them because they couldn't get past me. They couldn't even make an argument that they could win against me. So then Roe said, you know, we got to get this International Criminal Court. People are dying. Got 385,000 dead in Africa with the blood diamond wars going on. We got to get these criminals brought here and prosecuted. I says, okay, I'll tell you what. Nobody can read and write above a second grade reading level, and we sure aren't going to educate the world between now and then. So I'll sit back. You guys open your International Criminal Court. You bring these guys in. You play your games and whatever. I'll sit here and watch until you ask me to intervene and fix it. And that's where we've been. It's I'm busy doing other things. I'm writing contracts. I'm publishing, doing videos, putting stuff up on the internet, fighting big cases. Really, really big cases for countries. And now I've been.
written to the presidency and asked them to intervene in this child trafficking in the world, and they tried to say that it's none of their business. And this time it was about the state of Israel, but they say they have no jurisdiction in Israel because it's not ratified human rights and so on. But you know,
I know that's Trump just endorsed Israel and everybody else is screaming rape. So it's
yeah,
and he did it in adverb fiction.
yeah.
So he never said anything about anything to anybody. It's just that it just shows who can't read and write.
That's it. But the ICC are aware of quantum language on the.
Oh yeah. I've been in the Hague since 1997.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great news.
21
That's really
years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Martin, you there?
Hello.
Yeah, hi Martin.
I'm all sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello, Judge. Nice to see you.
What can I help you
It's
with?
Martin here from South Africa.
Okay. How's the Zulu doing down there?
It's a bit hectic down here. Hectic in the sense of there's a lot of propaganda and fear and confusion going around. But I've been a student of Mark. I completed a course and I've had much success. Actually, very much success. I'm just stuck at the banking side of things, and I was just wondering, Mark, that the bank that me and you looked into, have you had any success with that?
They're not ready to take a deposit. Is the Quantum Bank up and running?
Russell's already got a quantum bank in South Africa that he's doing business with a quantum bank treaty. And that's been in place about 8 years now. So you'd have to get a hold of Russell and discuss that with him.
Okay, what would be the best way to get hold of Russell with regards to that? Because
Well, if I knew that, I'd get a hold of him too.
Yeah, I'll provide you with the link of his website. I think you have it already.
He went underground again. You know, he did that video with the court martial, and he had
yes,
the FBI was there with guns, and they threatened his family, and he did that under duress. He's not in the military. I'm not in the military. He was very unprofessional, sitting in front of a horse barn in his yard to hold a court martial, and so he doesn't have any court experience, very little court experience. We've done some very good videos together from Hawaii and California and Idaho with the Canadians.
Most of the videos, Judge, I've got the 9 hours that you did, 8 hours of Russell, a 4 hour, a 5 hour. There's a lot of them, so I went through all of them, and I've really had a lot of success. I've been at the post office. I've had the lady at the post office there. I've real money for my stamps that I bought. I've been at the back of the post office. They handled me very, very well. Just with the money, after I've literally disqualified all the fiction, but now I find myself in a situation where my credit rating is of, how can I put it? I don't know how to clear or how to correct my credit rating on the fiction system. because they don't take my silver, they don't take my gold, they don't want my facts, and all their contracts are fiction. This is for the cell phone, home, mortgages, all of that. So I'm enjoying it, but I'm in a bit of a rut.
You're allowed two identities. You have your private side, which you can do with your gold and your quantum and your claim of the live life. And then you have your corporate side where you're a dead fiction on your driver's license, your insurance policies, your MasterCard, and your banking. Fiction in, fiction out, fact in, fact out. As long as if you play the fiction game, then give them their fiction due, and they'll leave you alone. If you do your quantum, make sure you do it with other quantum people, and they'll let you alone. Here in the United States, we have the Amish, the Quakers, and the Mennonites. They are outside of the fiction system. They barter amongst themselves. And they don't have TVs or radios or electricity or cell phones. They're old school. They have horse and buggies still from the 1850s, for crying out loud, running up and down the communities. I was raised in an Amish community in Indiana when I grew up for 10 years. So when I went down to when we did the August 2012 seminar, that was for the Amish community. That's one of the best seminars I've ever put on. It's 9.5 hours long. And the Amish and I get along great. You know, I know their condition of thinking, what they needed. Their children are brilliant. They filled an 80-page spiral notebook with notes, and they're only 8, 9, 10 years old while I was talking. Real smart kids.
I must say the children, they do understand this much easier. I see in the chat box that one of the other students is in contact with Russell. So Quibbers, yes, I'll definitely like to then get hold of you if you are speaking to Russell. That's my last hurdle, and I just want to thank you, Judge. It's been amazing. What I've been able to do, it's it's actually fascinating.
It's
I'll find out about later.
Is it okay, Martin, if I tell the story of the post office?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What Martin did is he walked himself into the post office. Actually, you tell it, Martin, but you've got to tell it within like 5 minutes or so.
Okay, I'm going to keep it short. What I did is I went to the post office. I opened just a savings account with the post bank. I deposited money. 3 weeks went by, and I needed some cash, so I went back to the post office. But when I made my initial deposit, I put brackets around the DE on the deposit slip, and I basically corrected the deposit slip. I made the deposit, and when I wanted to draw the money, there was 2 extra accounts that was opened with the last digits, one up and one down from the original account that I opened. To make a long story short, I showed the lady, because she said that there's no money in the account, and I showed her my deposit slip, and I had my original paperwork with me, with my rivets in it, so it was a binded document with my live life claim, their slips, the originals. I put my autograph on all the paperwork, and she called the postmaster of the post office, and then the lady of the post, or it was a lady, but the postmaster came from the back of the post office, and then she asked me for the ID that I used when I opened the account, and I said that I don't use that ID, and I showed her my live life claim, and when she saw it, she didn't take it. It was in a plastic sleeve, so she called me to the back, and I was sitting at the back. She was very friendly. I asked her if she knows Judge Miller, and she said no, and but we had a very good discussion, 45 minutes to an hour, and she phoned Bloemfontein, where I believe the banking is done, and they sorted me out. They gave me the credit, they fixed the account. They had to actually collapse the other 2 accounts, and then on my way out, I bought one rand postage stamps, and I gave her 50 rand, and there's 50 stamps on an A4 sheet. And what the lady said behind the counter is she's going to now transfer the value of the 50 rand note to the postage stamps. And I was quiet, and she did it. She scanned it in with a barcode scanner. And when she handed me the 50 stamps, I asked her, did you just say that you're going to transfer the value of the 50 rand note to the stamps? And she said, yes, I did. And I said, okay, then just be sure to discard the 50 rand note because the value can't be at two places at the same time. And she automatically, she tore up the money and she put it into a till. She didn't, because it makes perfect sense. So that was the first time that I saw the power of grammar, because people don't tear up money. It's not a normal thing.
Martin walked into the post office. He reminded the postmaster, if I give you some money and you give me postage stamp, this is postage stamp is real money, that's fiction money, and as a result you can't have two values in the same one value in two different places. So what do you have to do with the notes that I gave you? And he got the postmaster there to tear up the money, put it in a bin, and successfully transferred the value of the postage stamp directly onto the postage stamp, thereby destroying fractional banking by the post office.
Right.
I thought that's probably one of the best things I've ever heard.
Since that day, whoever they might be, I've got eyes on me. My internet is a huge problem. So yeah, I can just see that there's people looking at me, and it's like they're waiting for my next move. So I had the cops at my place the other day. There was actually 8 people. The sheriff of the court knew the language I was speaking because nobody else of the other people didn't know what the justice of the peace and the peace officer didn't know that words. But the sheriff of the court said, no, that's correct. What he's saying is correct. And we had a 4-hour discussion. No screaming, no shouting. They wanted to take one of my vehicles. Well, I actually gave them the vehicle after one of them took the responsibility because I said to them, I'm going to put a claim against you because this is theft. There is no contract. It was a 4-hour discussion, and one of the attorneys over the phone, he actually agreed with me, and then his boss phoned back, and I told him that I don't have a contract, but I was recording it on my cell phone. So I said, just put it on speakerphone. I want you to take responsibility because you want to take the vehicle without signing any paperwork. There's a spacing issue. This doesn't say anything, so this is theft. And I made one of the peace officers voluntarily be a witness for me. This is all in my yard, so I've had lots of fun, but now I'm stuck. It's.
You said if they took a car and you hold the title, send them a rent-a-car charge. Go down to Avis or Hertz Rent-A-Car at the courthouse and look up how they collect on rent-a-cars that don't come back, and they get judgments. Copy those lawsuits and send a true bill for the money, for the $100 a day for being in possession of your car. I don't care what their excuse is, and send them a true bill for renting your car, and I guarantee you a car will be in your driveway about 15 minutes after they get served. We do that all the time. Just it pisses them off. They get our cars back right away. I pioneered that process in Salt Lake City, Utah in 2000.
Sorry, Judge, I was breaking up on my side.
I said I pioneered how to recover property that the sheriff's department took and towed by sending them a rent-a-car true bill for being in possession while I hold the title. And because the storage companies where they kept the vehicles would go ahead and turn around and say, well, you owe us this much for storage. I said, well, you owe us this much for renting the vehicle because we hold the title to it, and you report it as a theft. Then the tow truck company that keeps it at their lot says to the state, well, you got to defend me. And the government says, we don't defend private contractors. Well, when this happened in California, in 4-inch high letters in every newspaper in the state the next day, we will tow no cars from the interstate. Is what the tow truck company said, because the police won't pay us or protect us if we do from a rent-a-car contract that Miller wrote in quantum language.
Judge, but I must say what they've actually done is, and I can see it because I trace it back to about the year 2000, 2001, thereabouts.
Yeah.
I can see every year when the new act that they draw up, then they cancel words out and they actually say that we don't use this word anymore and we don't use this word anymore, right in the beginning of the act. So they took out postmaster, they took out the postal payment order. So those are all words they take out, and then they don't train the staff the old ways anymore. So it's difficult. I don't see how they are going to improve in being correct when they just took their land back to, and they actually found the Act of 2000, and they say in Act 37, they say verb, adverb, verb, and they cancelled it out, and that's the part where it's money.
You know, in every state of the United States, when the state prosecutes anybody, it always says, like, I live in Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, pronoun, adverb, verb. How does a verb prosecute anybody? Especially with a fiction law. By just disqualifying the person, the fiction moving entity, the case is vacated.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you so much. I just want to also find out about Leighton. Is he now fine, Judge Miller?
Leighton's still in jail, 232 days now. I'm putting 90 government officials in Arizona on trial on the 24th of February at the London Bridge Hotel in Lake Havasu, Arizona. President Trump has also been summoned to my trial, and when he did the Union address the next day, that night, he was served in the morning. He even said on the Union address, if public officials are violating citizens' rights and arresting them, I will personally get involved. And in 230 days, they haven't been able to get Leighton to participate in any fiction, sign any fiction contracts, speak in any fiction in the courtroom, and they denied him his right to paperwork, right to grievance, right to counsel, right to interpreter. I mean, if you spoke Spanish and you're in a court, don't you have a Spanish translator? Or Japanese or Chinese? Anywhere in the world you're entitled to a translator. But this court says no. You got to speak to us in fraud, in fiction, and in babble, or we're going to keep you in jail until you do. This is the movie 1984 by Orwell. And if you want to get yourself upset, go on Netflix and watch the movie 1984 by Orwell, where Richard Burton is persecuting William Holton. And I guarantee you want to throw a brick at the TV screen, it'll get you so angry. But that's what they're doing in every court in America today. Same thing.
I must say, we don't have that type of issues here. It's all third parties, all contractors, all private, which I now understand, or I now comprehend. I've got no problem with that. But they don't have any education. They don't know how to handle the facts.
Second grade reading levels, that's all they got.
Okay, Martin, thank you very much. Anybody else with a question?
Yeah, can I try?
Yep, step forward, please.
Oh, you go then.
Can I get the first person that came in? Say your name.
Mike from New Zealand.
Okay, so what's your question?
Yeah, David and Mark. Thanks for the webinar. Yeah, we've got pretty corrupt situations here in New Zealand. A lot of stuff going on, and I've read your syntax grammar document you did for the Māori people, or the original people of New Zealand. It's pretty awesome. Do they actually use it, David?
Yes.
Or are they using?
Well, Tama is one of my friends down there. He's one of the chiefs. And when I came to New Zealand, about 95% of all people in prison were Maoris.
Yeah.
Or Maoris. And I traveled around the North Island doing seminars, and I was there for a total of 3 months. And then finally, I met with one of the Maori chiefs, and he told me, you stay out of my business. He says, I got to keep teaching these Maoris adverb verb fiction so that we can keep them under control and they won't own anything. and he was a university professor, chief. Well, I had that, just happened to have my cell phone recorder going on at the same time, and I recorded that. The next seminar I did in front of a dozen Maori chiefs, I played it for him. The next day he didn't work at the university anymore, and he wasn't a Maori chief anymore, and about 30,000 people rioted against him at the university for the fraud. And then they pulled my visa and kicked me out of the country.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened there. Yeah, because, I mean, in the situation we have in the world at the moment, you know, speaking fact is obviously a way forward to correct the fiction. You know, we have this deal going through at the moment, it's called the TPP-11. It involves 11 countries which America pulled out of, which I think at a later date they will come back into it. Your personal opinion on the state of the earth and the state of where we're heading, where do you actually see the fix coming from?
Where the what is coming from?
Where basically we're going to change our direction. We're going to have a paradigm shift in the way.
Oh, it's the people. The people have to make the changes. Don't forget, only 1% of the total population are your politicians, your lawyers, your attorneys, and your judges. They were going to set up each courthouse to be a kingdom with a 12-mile radius. The sheriff's department was going to be their military, and the attorneys were going to be and lawyers were going to harvest the people through trick, trap, and misrepresentation and lies. And that's how they were making their money. And that's the way it's been, the whole United States has been run all these years. And anything that deals with English courts, that's what they were doing. Now, when I went down to New Zealand, I put the word out that I wanted to have a meeting with all the crime bosses in New Zealand. There's 22 of them. And we did that, and one of the crime bosses was actually killed coming to the meeting by the sheriff's department. They ambushed him. But when all these men met at this meeting room, they all looked at each other as enemies. And when I told them that they were all being manipulated by grammar, I started just talking. In 20 minutes, I had all 22 men sitting shoulder to shoulder in the chairs in front of me for 4 hours. I unified all the organized crime groups to be the enforcers for the new Maori courts to protect the Maori people. Then the fiction government, through the British, brought in screws from South Africa to punish the Maori people and abuse them in prison. Well, every time they beat up a Maori in jail, the Maoris would go off and the warriors would go out and cut the hands or the feet off the family members of that guard. It took about 10 days and no Maori was ever touched again, and the screws left New Zealand. And then the Maori courts were set up, and the organized crime groups are their invisible enforcers that if they don't obey their laws in correct grammar, there's repercussions that take place after the sun goes down.
Yeah. We've got a day coming up you're probably aware of. It's called Waitangi Day here in New Zealand, and it's basically the re-signing of the Treaty of Waitangi, which was when the British came over and colonised New Zealand.
Yeah, it was 1834, I believe that treaty was written.
Yeah.
But I syntaxed it. It's all fraud. I rewrote that. I rewrote that treaty. I disqualified that treaty. Oh God, it must be 15 years. No, that was 12, 13, 14 years ago. I disqualified that. Thomas got a copy of that. He's one of the chiefs. Lives in Auckland.
Yeah, that's a big fraudulent piece of paper that basically keeps dividing this country.
Yeah, it's 3 feet by 3 feet. Yep. Hey, go! Sean's got Shawnee, that little guy. He's about 5 feet tall, 4.5 feet tall.
Okay.
He's always on the news, causing disturbances and everything, working with the Maori people. He teaches my programs. Does a Skype like the series. Been doing that for about 15 years. He used to, when he first started, he sold his program to the Maoris that he invented it. And then when I showed up in New Zealand and I started putting on seminars, they realized that he was plagiarizing my technology, and they put his feet to the fire. But he was doing everything wrong. And then I met with him, and I straightened him out. I put on some seminars for him and taught him how to do it right. And then he went back out and corrected. And then I told the Maori people, you can work with him in that, but if somebody feels uncomfortable, just call me in Wisconsin, because I'm always open to Skype and put on a seminar for you guys, and just like this webinar, and answer your questions. I'm a lot smarter today than I was 15 years ago.
This says a man who just had 5 heart attacks.
Hey, you know, I was legally dead for 55 hours at Tripler Medical Hospital. They wanted to cremate my body, and my sister wouldn't let them move me. They said, no, he's going to wake up. He says, the guy's dead. He's got no heartbeat, he's got no liver, no kidney, he's got edema of the lungs. He's got pneumonia. He's paralyzed. And the guy's dead. He said, we got to get this room going. We got more people coming in. My sister says, no, I'll pay the $2,200 a day for him to lay here. He'll wake up, and 2.5 days later, 55 hours later, I woke up. Shocked to hell, every doctor in the hospital came up and signed my chart, saying they witnessed a dead man waking up.
Yeah. So your personal experience with your, obviously, Parsec syntax grammar, to be taught worldwide,
yes.
As a factual language is probably the best thing that could actually happen on the earth, for the earth moving forward and all the people on it. How do we establish schools to teach this? Because this is the first. I've followed your YouTube channel, and I've met with Cobus, and obviously done Mark's schooling. But and I think I actually emailed you trying to get hold of one of your books. But the problem is, David, it's we work in this fiat currency to teach an education that the whole earth should know, to move us out of this fiction. I'd love to be able to teach it myself here in New Zealand.
Well, I tell you what, with all there's several hundred hours of videos up on the internet. And if you want to get a group together, just pull one of those videos and have them watch it as a group. And you'll set a fire under them, I guarantee it. And if your country has got you blacked out 100% about everything and anything I've done on the internet, and you've got that level of censorship, contact somebody in another country, have them burn CDs to you, burn the CDs off of the internet, and ship them to you.
Oh, we don't have a blackout.
Okay.
We have corruption on the highest level you can think of.
I know. I'm a federal land court judge. I deal with the Supreme Court in New South Wales, so in New Zealand.
Yeah. So we've been testing the waters. So one example I can share with you: a young fellow we know was basically arrested unlawfully, and for no reason. He was just a young 17-year-old boy, and they basically bullied him into
A confession of something he didn't do, so they could throw him in jail, so he can't be sued for false arrest.
Yeah, so that's what we so we decided we'd ring the sergeant of the station, and we'd say, look, can we organise a meeting with you? She didn't want to have a bar of it until we mentioned a private prosecution against her and the officer, and then she made time for us straight away. So we went in there, and we weren't going to record the conversation, but we ended up recording it anyway. And the question that we asked her is the New Zealand police under maritime law. And she took about 8 seconds to answer. She goes, I don't quite understand your question, angrily. And then we laughed and we repeated the question. And after we repeated the question, she basically told us to leave forcefully. The 2 officers that were there with us started puffing their chests out, shaking their chicken wings and exerting their dominance. But all we said, we're here in peace. We just want you to answer a couple of questions for us to establish jurisdiction. And basically, they just heaved us out of the station. The young boy obviously ended up going to court, and I went up with him to support him. And the bar in the courtroom, he stood behind the bar in the public gallery. And we said basically stood up and said, I'm here. And the judge says, if you don't enter my courtroom, I'm going to have you arrested for not appearing. So obviously we knew the bar. As soon as he walked over the bar, he was in there dry dock. I just saw the corruption in the court and the bully tactics that take place. So when he said, I want to enter a plea of innocence under the New Zealand Bill of Rights, not guilty or guilty, but innocent. And she ignored him, and then he said it again, and she goes, well, I'm going to enter your plea of innocent. Of not guilty. And so he held her in contempt of court because obviously she can't speak for him. And she stood there, and she said straight away, you can leave now. And he stood in the dock and he waited. He just made her so uncomfortable. And she's squirming in her seat because she was only a JP. And I just seen her lean over to the clerk of the court and say, I think he's going to leave. I think he's going to leave. But she would have had to leave otherwise. But he stood down, and so we got the paperwork, and none of the documents are signed or dated. So any sort of help you could give us with that, as far as Class A syntaxing those documents and giving it back to them, any help would be much appreciated.
Well, throw me an email. Let me see what they look like.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay. Yep, sounds good. Thanks for the time, and thanks, Mark, for your webinar, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next question. Call out your name.
Hi, it's Cobus, another one from New Zealand. Hi, Dave. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Nice to see you, Dave. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I'm busy moving countries. I'm moving from New Zealand to Australia. And I've got a deal with customs. I've got a deal with licenses and permits, imports and exports. Have you got any idea how do I transport myself successfully, which includes armament and vehicles, through customs without recontracting?
Okay, you have to go through follow your customs laws, rules, regulations, and codes. If you do anything in quantum, they won't even let you in the country. And when you say armament, you have an ARMA, A-R-M-A, you call it. It's for self-defense. If you call it a weapon or a gun or anything, they'll take it away from you and you won't get it back.
Okay.
Then you go into corporate, you want to look up your immigration custom laws under Corporation Act 2001 for New South Wales. And that'll give you an insight as to what you're dealing with. All right?
Dave, thanks so much, Dave. I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there anybody else that hasn't had a chance to ask a question? Anybody?
Hi, this is Tona.
Yeah, hi, Tona.
Hi. Hello. My question is in regards to passports. My mother has a blue passport. My aunt is living in Italy, and she works for the UN. She has a green passport. And my cousin, who is from Italy but works in Spain, he has a red passport. So we just had a webinar and speaking about, knowing what these colors mean. And my question is, would it be better for us to get a black passport? Is that best thing? Or should we just use the Live Life Claim as our passport and the means of travel?
You can use the Live Life Claim to get a passport. You don't need a government birth certificate. You can use that document. And they will like Russell, his wife, and his daughter, they got all three of their passports to travel internationally, and they did it with a life claim. What color they're going to give you, that's up to the post office. They're in charge of it. Okay?
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. You're going to have to check with them. They're changing the rules all the time, especially with Trump throwing, doing all this immigration stuff. So all the passport companies in the United States and worldwide that have to interface with that, they're rewriting the laws now. So you might want to check and see what the new laws are. Okay?
Okay.
Post office is where you get your passport.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Hi, David.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. It's John.
Yep. Hi, John.
Josh.
Josh. Sorry. My earring is not as good as Miller's. Full stop.
Hey, I had a question regarding, well, actually two questions. I had heard, Mark, you do an interview, and perhaps well, either one of you can comment, but it was regarding medical doctors, a physician and a doctor. And I know in the U.S. there have been a lot of, these mysterious deaths, like over 80 doctors, naturopathic doctors, homeopathic doctors. And I saw this one interview that you did, Mark, and it captivated me because it was like, wow, just a simple change in language could shift, like the one doctor was being threatened. So I was wondering if that has anything to do with sort of what was going on with a lot of these doctors that are coming up with these new, I don't know, healing remedies or ways to heal yourself. So how that works in the Parsi language context.
That's got nothing to do with the Parsi. The DICOM, D-I-A-C-O-M frequency, radio frequency to read all the DNA in your body and compare that with 2 million other DNA-like people to find out where you are in your health, and then reprogram it to the age of 20 and put the missing DNA codes into the crystal of DNA, because DNA is crystalline. Then you have the frequency zapper, square wave Hulda Clark or Rife technology, and that goes out and destroys the DNA frequency of molds, bacteria, cancers, and gets rid of the bad things. The new DICOM zapper combinations that they have, when the DICOM analyzes an area that's infected, it will then give you the correct frequencies to go in there and destroy that. Those are about $15,000, $16,000 machines. But I've got two separate machines, both the DICOM and the frequency zapper, and I use both of them. So.
That interview that I did, I think that was for Dr. Colwell. I don't fully remember it, but this is what I know about what titles of a doctor is. A doctor is another word for a cook, okay, and a cook is also the doctor aboard a vessel because he cooks the nutrients that feeds the sailors. But here comes the trick. The cook, the doctor, is completely answerable to the captain. His only job is to add value to the ship or the ship's owner. If he takes value away from the ship, then that's an entirely different proposition. He needs the captain's permission. So when the pharmaceutical industry, who work in maritime because they use the doctors and the titles of a doctor and things like that, the pharmaceutical cooks are the ones that are licensed, because when you're dealing with poisons you must have a license, calibrate the poisons, and only doctors can administer those poisons because they don't work with what we would understand as cures or remedies. They are calibrated poisons. So when a naturopath takes up the title of a doctor, they are immediately fell into maritime, and they're now taking value away from the pharmaceutical industry, and they have the right to stop him. That's how I know about the words maritime. That's how I came to understand what doctors mean, what cooks are. The pharmacies are people that prepare poisons. They're all licensed to prepare poisons and poisons only under Codex Alimentarius. So the simple thing is, if you take up a title like a doctor, which really means you're a subordinate and not a physician aboard a vessel or on land, then of course you pay your dues and don't take any money away from the ship owner or the captain. That's what I have to say about it.
Wow, it's just amazing.
Yeah, Dr. Colwell doesn't use his title anymore, doctor.
He doesn't, because I remember you had mentioned him saying that I am a physician standing on the land, or you gave him a phrase to use, which supposedly would nullify, any of the threats that he was receiving.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to him since, but that's that.
Okay.
Would I be
And then
correct?
last.
Sorry?
Thank you. Can I ask one other quick question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I had gotten this book a while ago, just kind of dabbling in all of this, and I'm still new to it all. And this is, it was by Judge Anna Maria Reinster.
She's not a judge.
You know something? Not a judge.
No, she's in Alaska. She's so full of herself in adverb verb fiction and that's. I looked at that stuff and I'm going like, boy, anybody that buys into this is going to wind up in jail.
Well, that's what I kind of had a feeling, just cognitively. I have the book, but I figured, okay, getting it, and just kind of going through the trials and tribulations of learning. But when I came across, your technology and then Mark doing all the work, it's just, it's mind-boggling to me. But then, I don't know, I've got so many questions. I got to, sit with all of this and just kind of vacillate it, and then, I guess, engage.
Oh, you can come on the webinars. That's there. But with Anna Vance, as an educationalist, her books are very good. I've learned a lot of things from her. But in terms of any legal matters, you would be sailing in very, very
risky waters.
Risky waters. You'll lose navigational skills. Now, I know her team, and I know students of hers as well. I won't say too much about it because I don't speak negatively, but I know lots of people that do navigate in her waters, and we'll leave it at that. Okay?
Okay. Thanks very much, guys. Continue the awesome work, and I look forward to taking more of the seminars. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? We've done 2 hours 15 minutes now. Well, you have done 2 hours 15 minutes. Would you like to keep going?
Hey David, Hey David, this is Chad again. I got another question for me.
Can I just pause for a minute? I just need to check. Ben, are you able to hear me, and do you have any questions? Or Frederick, or Hans, Cobus, Sam, Billy, Brown? We call him Dr. Sebi. And I'm sorry to laugh because Dr. Sebi lost his life, as you guys know. So if you've got any questions, ask it. Gary is on board as well. Garrett, we haven't heard anything from you, I think.
Yeah, I do have a question or two when you're...
Yeah, who's this?
Brown.
Yeah, okay, ask please.
Yeah, when you're suing company employees, should I sue them all together or one at a time?
You have to have first-hand knowledge, and the only way you're going to...
Because I had a feeling it was wrong.
You got to have first-hand knowledge of the exact person. You can't... If you sue somebody that's not involved under the McNulton rule, and they don't know that they did anything wrong, it could blow back on you, and then you wind up getting sued for slander. So just to go after the only person that damaged you with physical evidence. Don't say don't hit them with a shotgun pattern. It ain't gonna work.
So I understand the multi-rule as being a plea of...
I gotta say this. You cannot tell anybody what they are doing wrong to you. You can only say that with your knowledge that you were damaged by them. You must always speak in first person. Never speak in second person. The judge will throw your case out in a heartbeat, and then they can sue you. Because you can never tell anybody what they're doing. So always remember, you must always sue in first person. Only talk about your personal knowledge of how you were personally damaged. You got that? By that person.
Other than that, that's called slander. Could you do us the analogy, please, of the pen dropping?
Oh, it's just like, you know, I'm holding a pen in my hand, right? And what just happened? Most people say you dropped the pen. I'm going, well, no. When I'm thinking, you can't see a thought. If I think, I hold the pen. When I stop thinking, the pen drops. Or somebody has telekinesis here and pulled the pen out of my hand. See, you can't tell anything that anybody else done. The only thing you can say is you watch the pen drop. Now, if it's laying here and I'm doing the same thing and I'm doing it again, I stop thinking about holding the pen. But because it's set to rest by an opposing force, which is my hand holding it, this hand, you can't see when gravity doesn't tell you that the pen is in motion. But believe me, the pen is in motion because I stopped holding it. It's just that you can't see a movement, so therefore you have nothing to say about it.
So don't accuse him of dropping the pen. Just be the witness that the pen dropped from his hand. Full stop. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah, lovely. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Anybody else with a question?
Hi.
Yep. Yes, Sam. Hi.
Hi, David.
Hi.
What's your biggest achievement using the Miller language?
Can I just hear what she said? What's your biggest achievement using the Miller's language?
Well, Ireland got their independence when I wrote them a constitution in quantum language. The Solomon Islands got their case settled for 1,129 people that were genocided under a letter of marque from the Admiralty in 1929 and collected an $880 million settlement from Queen Elizabeth at the World Court at The Hague that I wrote. We had cursive writing removed from all the schools, universities, and high schools in the United States. It's no longer taught for 5 years. Just to name a few things.
The individuals like me, if it wasn't...
Iceland forgave all their mortgages when they got one copy of my mortgage fraud case because all the mortgages in Iceland were fraudulent from all the banks that do business on the New York Stock Exchange for securitized backed assets in London. So, and they also forgave all the MasterCards for fraudulent language on that, and nobody could get paid interest. Because, and if you prove that if you sue your MasterCard contract and you've got this big interest bill because they're charging you 34% interest because you missed a few payments, and you sue them for false grammar, interest is now forgiven completely and you only have to pay back the principal. If you file bankruptcy against MasterCard or lose your home in a foreclosure where you're discharging the debt, well, you got the money to buy something, and if you don't, and then when it wasn't paid back, it's now classified as earned income that you didn't declare on your taxes. So then the government comes in and they charge you interest, penalties, and late fees on your taxes compounded at 18% a year. And so you wind up paying back 125% of whatever you borrowed. So always make sure that if you're going into something that you can get out of it. And if you have a damage where you know you're not going to be able to make your payments, you become handicapped, then you better sell off the assets to pay back the principal and figure out a new way of life. Readjust your life because it'll come back, it'll blow back on you. Okay?
Okay. What do you think of the secure party creditor movement?
What do I think about what?
The secured party creditor movement.
Well, I'll put you in jail for 8 years. Redemption, straw man, secured party creditor, and UCC, that's all nonsense. You're suing fiction with fiction. You're writing a debt instrument with no backing. You're not a bank. You're not licensed by the United States Securities and Exchange or the Bank Commission to create debt. So when you go out and you write that check and you're not licensed, they're going to arrest you and put you in prison for 8 years. You know what the government does? They'll find a group. Maybe 80 people belong to the group, and the president will go in there and write that securitized security creditor check and get $100,000, $200,000, or they go after a redemption program and say, wow, look at, I got this money. So everybody else jumps in. How do you catch fish? You use bait. And they let the one commit the crime, and then everybody copies them. They harvest the whole thing at once, their homes, their cars, their bank accounts, their savings accounts. And the government gets rich, and everybody sits in jail as a slave, planting vegetables during the summertime to feed themselves in the winter. The prison system in the United States now is they don't supply you with food. They don't supply you with, you might get a bologna sandwich. They don't supply you with, they don't supply you with toiletries and soap and everything. You got to go out and buy everything when you're in jail. And it costs 500% more than Walmart is selling it for. And telephones, that telephone in the jail, they collect $1,200 an hour. These people are going crazy sitting there. They want to call somebody and talk to them. Get me out of here. Well, they're charging $2.20 a minute. And these phones are all lined up. Yeah, let the prisoners talk all they want. Everybody else is running their MasterCards up to pay for their phone calls. Keep them busy. In the meantime, the jail's just, it's a big money machine.
Yep, prison's their money you're making.
33 million Americans are on probation and 8 million are behind bars. 41 million Americans are under arrest. Our population is about 380 million. So that's 12% of the population of the United States is under arrest. 40% of the population of America is in foreclosure. And the stock market's at 26,500? Yeah, right. That thing is a bubble so big, if somebody touches it with a pin, it's going to burst and drop like a stone.
Thank you very much.
Another one for you.
Okay.
When you cracked the code, when and where were you?
Where was I? I was in my kitchen making my coffee. I was half asleep. I had a... Let me have that. Yeah. I had my line paper. I kept writing like this. So I wrote 1 plus 2 equals 3, 3 minus 2 equals 1 on the red line. Then I went and I sat down. When I sat down, it was turned sideways. I say, hey, I got a graph. So I put in the values. And when I put in the values, it worked frontwards and backwards in grammar the same way it did in math. And that's how I broke the code on April 6, 1988. Then I tried it with every known mathematical procedure, and it always worked. And now I had the key. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide, sine, cosine, tangent, called operations. For the bridge is over the water, for the water is under the bridge, over and under opposite prepositions, and it's the preposition that is the operation of grammar. And there's 38 positive and 38 negative prepositions. And 38 articles. All about that. It's all mathematics. It's all even.
That's probably the best question I've heard. I think I always wondered when it was.
It's on all my videos. I do it on all my videos. I graphed it all out on the board.
20 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years. April 6th would be my 30th anniversary.
Yeah, 30 years, yeah.
And you know what April 6th is, don't you? It's the day Christ was born, the day Christ died. Isn't that special?
That's a boomerang to me. I don't.
And then on when we opened the Federal Postal Court, July 4, 1775, we opened it up on 12/21/2012, the Mayan calendar. 1,800 years ago, they said on 12/21/25, the first day of winter, 2012, the world will end. And the is an adverb making world verb. We ended the world of verb. And now quantum banking, the quantum correct parse syntax grammar, Federal Postal Court responsible for vessels moving in correct parse syntax grammar on planet Earth is now established. We then drove to Washington, D.C., served the Congress, the Senate, the legislature, the Supreme Court, the Postmaster General, and President of the United States. That the federal court is now open. The Federal Postal Court is now open. Obama was in Hawaii on vacation. He was on a plane back in Washington, D.C. in 12 hours. He had to cut his vacation short because a new court, a legitimate court, in quantum language, 24 years established before the Supreme Court, and I prosecuted Benjamin Franklin for fraud as a triple agent, French attorney working for the English Crown to capture America and embarrass them with adverb verb, the Declaration of Independence. The being the adverb modifying the verb declaration, of is an adverb making independence a verb, both a lie. Then DE is no, Claire is speak, act is location, ION is contract. That's parse. Independence, in is no, D is no, pen is right, ans is contract. You shall not speak contract and you shall not write contract. Then what's the first three words? We the people. We is a pronoun, no, no, no. The is an adverb making people a verb fiction. So you can either be a nobody or a verb fiction. Feel good today? All nice and warm and fuzzy? Then all the judges, the attorneys, the lawyers, and politicians, they swear an oath. No law or fact shall be tried in court. No, a negative adverb, modifies the negative law and the negative fact. Well, it says no parking, no trespassing, don't walk. Huh? Thou shall not, even the Bible, 10 Commandments, thou shall not. All negativity. Shall be tried, shall is a pronoun in the future time. Be is an adverb, modifies the verb tried. Now we got the future time and the past time. Where's the now time? In is an adverb making court a verb. Well, now we got the verb court, the verb tried, the verb law, and the verb fact, and all negative under no. That's why a vowel and two consonant words are used in the pleadings by the judges and the attorneys to say no contract, no contract, no contract, over and over and over again until it drives you crazy. Try syntaxing the 4,700 words on the mortgage contract, or the 10,000 words on an insurance contract, day in and day out for 30 years. You're driving nuts.
What made you actually start this language that you created then?
They took away my children and said men can't nurture children. I couldn't see my children. You don't take my Papa Bear's cubs away from them. I said, I'm going to sue that judge under the 1964 Civil Rights Act for sex discrimination, and I had Stanley Miller fired as a judge. 7 years later, he's reappointed. I had him fired 2 weeks later as a judge. And in 1995, I had him fired a third time when he got back on the bench after a week. He died 2 years later, never to serve on a bench as a bigot. And I've been suing judges since 1980, 30 years now. I'm the only judge, prosecutor worldwide that travels around going after judges for criminal activity.
I'm glad someone is.
I'm the only judge that ever got a Judge Grover, 38 years as a circuit court judge, to confess to treason in front of an audience of 125 people and a jury of 12. And Schmitz, his partner, throws me in jail for summary contempt for embarrassing the judge. They had to shut down all... Yeah, I did 5 days in jail on January 15th, 1999, because I embarrassed the judge because I got him to confess to treason on the witness stand. So then, while I'm in jail, took me 1 hour, and I got all 15 guys in my pod sitting there writing a quo warranto complaint, copying each other over my shoulder, how to prosecute the judge, Grover and Schmitz. Then I went ahead and I had a captive audience and did a 40-hour seminar on syntax, sentence structure, and how the court fraud works. Well, the warden got scared because we didn't listen to the radio, didn't watch TV, and everybody's busy writing, and I was the only one talking in the thing. So he took all, I was in my underwear, just my underwear, 20 below zero, 15 inches of new snow in Shawano, Wisconsin. They threw me out at 5 a.m. in the morning. I had to run 3 city blocks with just my underwear on into a bar, and everybody in that bar was at the hearing, at the trial. They dressed me, fed me, gave me warm clothes, and got me back to Milwaukee. But in the interim, the warden got scared. And so the warden goes ahead and he takes these 15 guys and puts them in 15 other pods with 15 other people. Well, 15 times 15 is 225 guys there now. So after a week of that, everybody we had 225 guys now all brought in on syntax, because these guys repeated what they learned to the guys in their pods. And the jail was so quiet for the whole week, the warden got scared. So he called down at Madison, Wisconsin, and he said, hey, something's going on here. I think we're going to have a prison riot. So the prison board says, I'll tell you what, let's break up those 225 guys and send them to put one guy in each jail in every county in 7 states. So 225 jails were now contaminated with David Windmiller syntax when these guys went in there, and the process repeated itself from pod to pod, and 6 weeks later there were 600 quo warranto complaints filed by the prisoners for false arrest and fictitious conveyance of language against the people. And then the rule went out and said, don't ever put Miller in jail again. I was a virus that exploded. Now every prison in the United States knows who I am. And this quantum has gone globally with 5 billion people. So.
Thank you, Sam. Anybody else?
Good answer. Could I ask a question, Matt, about land?
Sure.
You said that you filed a claim for the land, yes?
Lodial title, yes.
Yeah, and me, I'm a farmer. I would like to work on the land, so I would like to get a nice piece of land and have it, keep it. How? You know how to do this?
Sure. You get the land, you pay your taxes. You buy the land, pay your taxes, pay your mortgage payments, and farm. Make a living.
But you didn't buy it, did you?
What, the
You
land?
saved-
No, I
filed
didn't.
a claim.
I filed a claim, Lodial title claim. No, quiet title claim. You see, when Bailey came there, everything was sovereign. There was no titles. And so he broke up the land and put his name on it and filed titles, but they were an adverb verb. And so I disqualified him, and I filed a quiet title in quantum. Took me 6 months to write it, but we got it done. And Cheryl still has the quiet title on the land.
Yeah, I could of course get the money and get the land, but you see, my ancestors owned this land, and it was taken away from us. So I'm like, which approach should I take? Is
Are you in South Africa by any chance?
No, I'm in Norway, but colonizers came everywhere.
Well, is this after World War II? After the Nazis were there?
It seemed it happened actually much earlier. Much earlier, many thousand years ago with.
Well, the statute of limitations is 7 years.
Say again?
I don't remember Norway ever having a war or a civil war.
Yeah, I don't know. They when the Christians came, they killed most of the natives there. Yeah.
I haven't studied the Norwegian history. I can look into it though to find out where you can establish your position. I know a lot about a lot of different countries and the history of this planet and how people moved for 10,000 years. And but I'd have to pull out my books and get into my research on Norway and find out what the politics are up there.
Well, man.
Send me an email.
Sorry, what did you say?
Send me an email.
Man, I will.
Give me your location, and I'll do what I can about cross-referencing my information and my experiences with Lodial titles and the Norwegian politics, and find out what you need. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Let me just say that when you speak about the history of Hawaii, you know, it's in short, I can say that it's quite the same here. It just happened much earlier, you know.
Wait.
So yeah.
The things that happened in Hawaii have been a secret since the white man showed up and started writing things in English there instead of Hawaiian. And it was an obituary article, 2 inches wide and 4 inches high, ordering the Masons to the Masonic Lodge, which is also the postmaster in the Supreme Court of Hawaii, directly across the street from the Iolani Palace. And when I saw that as a Mason, I ran the timelines in both directions, and that's how I discovered the bankruptcy, the timelines, the invasion, the takeover, and all the crimes that were committed by the United States against Hawaii and Japan. And then I published it. It's on my website. You can read it. It's about a 600-word article. Okay?
Yeah. And last question, Miller. Like, you say you are a Mason, but I'm like, have you been in the Masonic Lodge?
I'm with the Palmer Lodge in Milwaukee. Yes. You see, all the Masons worldwide, their books are written in adverb fiction. 2/3 of all the words are missing. I put the missing words in, and I rewrote a new one that's correct. And as I travel all over the world, people bring me their Masonic books, and they all have their special little phrases that they want, or stories they want. And so I will syntax them, show them where the fraud is in their story, put the missing words in now time. Not the past, not the future, but now time. And when they see it, the Masons are always sitting in front of me crying because they're happy to learn what correctness looks like. And then they put me in their charter and say, this man is a 92nd degree Mason. He knows what he's talking about. He can prove his sentence structure frontwards and backwards and answer all the questions we have ever asked him about anything.
Wow, man, that answers my questions. Because it just seemed too crazy, you know, what you said. But, man, yeah. I could imagine that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else with questions?
Judge, I just got a question. It's Martin from South Africa. Is there something significant on the timeline that's happening in South Africa now that we should look out for?
Well, I did a radio show down there a few years back, and they had 200,000 Maoris screaming they want their land back from the British. And because there are no treaties, trusts, or contracts in South Africa written in correct grammar for the British government to invade the Maori kingdom. And the Maori kingdom was sovereign. So even though your government has been set up and it is where it's at, it needs to be fixed. And so when you bring quantum against any law, rule, regulation, or code that the country has done in fraud to damage the sovereignty of the Maori, of the Zulu tribe owners and their kingdom, that's an international court argument now that needs to go to the International Criminal Court or to The Hague. But I'll tell you right now, the wait time is 14 years to have your case heard. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Judge.
And if you do it in quantum, you might get in real fast because they love having quantum lawsuits come in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's been well over 3 hours now. 3 hours.
We're going to break for lunch.
Yeah. So we'll call it a day. But Darcy wants to address the students, is that right? Okay, so this is Darcy, she's one of the ladies that are with us. She's one of the students.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to say I've been with David the last 3 days now, and you all have heard about all the amazing things he's doing worldwide. I just want to share with all of you that he's also a very personable person, and he's willing to help us. So if he says to email him or call him or send him something, do it. And then do your work. We need to help him. And if we don't do our work, he can't continue to do his. So I'm just very thankful, and I look forward to citing all of you next week.
Thank you very much, Darcy. I would reflect upon that. It's what we can do for him. He's done so much. If it wasn't for him, Miller that is, I couldn't do what I do. And those people that know me just need to look me up on YouTube and just Google me, and you'll find out all the things that have happened to me. And I'm able to do this because I have knowledge of his technology. You know, we spent time in his home without being too negative. I think even in Britain, where houses are really small, we would class where he lives as a garage. You know, it's a tiny little thing. He lives a very, very humble life. It's quite profound. And he was sharing some other bits and pieces of his life. And he lives an operation where when things come in his life, i.e. money and so on and so forth, it goes right back out. And that's the principle that he lives. Whether it's a pound or $1 million, it just goes right back out. I think you called it fiction in, fiction out or something?
No, it's Pay It Forward. There's a movie called Pay It Forward.
Movie called Pay It Forward, and that's the life that he...
There's a story about the wife wants to buy a gold chain for her husband's watch. That's the starts with an M. And so she doesn't have any money, so she cuts her hair to sell her hair to buy the chain, and the husband sells the watch to buy her a brooch for her hair. And it's a story about the miracle. It's a real popular story.
Of the Magi?
Huh?
The Gift of the Magi?
Yeah, The Gift of the Magi is the name of it.
The Gift of the Magi, okay.
And because the way I run my life and my finances, and I help people and I give away my money, it always seems to show up again. No matter how fast I give it away, it just keeps self-generating. And it's quite a miracle. I wear my clothes, I eat my food, I sleep in my bed. I got a roof over my head, and I'm comfortable. I get to travel and meet people, and I pay my own way when I travel. And I do what I'm supposed to do, and the miracle just keeps on going on, and it's been 30 years, so it's a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, David. I'll end the class, so if you want to say goodbye to each other, that would be good. Does anybody here want to say goodbye to the students?
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and yourself?
Hi everyone, it's Annette.
Yeah, great. Thank
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you back.
From my heart.
It's been a pleasure and a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay strong.
Blessings. Thank you very much, Judge.
Yes,
Thanks, Judge.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Good night. Good night, good evening, good morning.
It was lovely. Thanks. Bye.
Yes.